Chapter 606. The fierce fighting in the hall was endless, and blood kept flowing. At this moment, Lin Sun was like a young god of slaughter, peerless and disdainful. He was invincible with a broken sword, with starlight flowing and saber chi sweeping across the whole field. This made those water barbarians tremble with fear. They screamed in fear and desperately fought back. However, all this was doomed to be in vain. Lin Sun chased and killed all the heroes of various clans all the way, and created an unparalleled bloody road. Even the holy sons of various clans couldn't stand up to him and finally fled. But now, how could these water barbarians, who were all at the Tao Insight realm, be Lin Sun's opponent? For a moment, the hall was full of screams and wails, and the rain of blood was like a waterfall. Even old Toad was stunned. He had wanted to help, but he didn't expect that he couldn't do anything at all. This made him curse Lin Sun in his heart. He was such a bully. Those enemies were like cutting melons and vegetables in Lin Sun's hands. They were not at the same level at all. In just a moment, those water barbarians were mercilessly killed by Lin Sun, leaving incomplete corpses on the ground and blood staining the ground. Lin Sun was clean and undamaged. His moon-white clothes were clean and tidy, and even the broken sword was not stained with blood. He stood in the pool of corpses and blood with a transcendent temperament. Who could imagine that such a shocking purgatory-like bloody massacre would be related to such an elegant young man? Damn it, this boy has stolen the limelight. If this goes on, where can I find a sense of existence? Old Toad sighed with a melancholy look, as if he was born at the wrong time and had no place to show his strength. Old Toad, you still have the mood to complain? Come and help. In the distance, Zhao Jingxian said angrily. She used the 9 Dragons cauldron to deal with Yao Susu and Lian Fei, but couldn't do anything to the mysterious scroll, which made her a little anxious. Hasn't that boy already gone there? If this prince were to go and help you, wouldn't I become a third party? Old Toad laughed. He had a handsome and charming face, but his smile was particularly wretched and annoying, which might have something to do with Old Toad's temperament. Lin Sun had indeed gone to help at that moment, but when he heard Old Toad's vulgar words, his face still darkened. A third party? This damn Toad was really asking for a beating. Lin Sun gnashed his teeth and said, "Well, if you dare to interfere when we divide up the treasures, I will break your third leg." Bah! Then, before the old Toad flew into a rage, Zhao Jingxuan's pretty face flushed after hearing such a vulgar description of the third leg. She glared at Lin Sun fiercely, as if scolding him for becoming frivolous. Lin Sun was instantly speechless. He felt wronged because Old Toad was a 3-legged golden toad. Is it wrong to break his third leg? Look, you're fighting for fortune, yet you're still flirting and exchanging flirtatious glances with each other. How can a lone king like me endure this? Old Toad's face was filled with indignation. Yao Susu and Lian Fei, who were already in despair, looked even more gloomy. What kind of people were these? They were talking and laughing among themselves. Did they really treat them as air? This was simply going too far. The two of them didn't know what to feel at this moment. Anger? Discontent? Despair? Or was it humiliation, grief, and indignation? Lin Sun, if you want to kill me, just kill me. Why do you have to humiliate me like this? In the end, Lian Fei couldn't bear it anymore. He let out a roar, his eyes almost popping out of their sockets. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't consider your feelings. I almost forgot that we're mortal enemies. We've been enemies for many years. Lin Sun's voice was casual and his expression was calm. Lian Fei was so angry that he almost spat out a mouthful of blood and his face turned green. How could this guy be so indifferent in the face of great enmity? Was it possible that in his heart, he didn't even have the qualification to be his enemy? I'll fight with you. Under the attack of anger, Lian Fei let out a furious roar and pounced on Lin Sun. Don't! Yao Susu's beautiful face was pale with fright. With the protection of the secret map in her hand, they could still resist and contend with Lin Sun's attack. But Lian Fei took the initiative to attack at this moment. Wasn't this no different from courting death? It's time to put an end to the enmity between us. A cold light flashed in Lin Sun's black eyes. This was the opportunity he had been waiting for. He struck with the broken sword, and in an instant, a bloody head was chopped off. Lian Fei's face was still full of anger, shame, and unwillingness before he died. You're too straightforward. I thought you would drag on for a while and torture this boy to vent the hatred in your heart. After all, this is revenge. It's natural to review the past grievances and express your inner forbearance and emotion. But you didn't take the usual path and killed him with one strike. How boring. The old toad laughed strangely and commented on Lin Sun's means of revenge. To be honest, if he hadn't jumped out on his own initiative, I would have almost forgotten that there was such an enemy. Lin Sun shrugged with an innocent look. Since entering the Forbidden City and experiencing many dangers and hardships, Lin Sun had long been indifferent to the enmity between him and Lian Fei. He didn't even think about eradicating it. Who would have thought that Lian Fei had always regarded him as an enemy and even planned to use Yao Tuahai and the whole Yao clan to deal with him? The result was clear. The Yao clan had been destroyed and Yao Tuahai was dead. Even the life and death realm king of the water barbarian tribe, Shui Qianshan, whom they had invited, was defeated by the Iron Blood King Ning Bugui. Now, seeing Lian Fei and Yao Susu who escaped the net, Lin Sun naturally wouldn't let them live. He wanted to get rid of them once and for all. It wasn't that Lin Sun was cruel and bloodthirsty, but when he saw that Lian Fei and Yao Susu entered the secret realm of monsters and even came to this mysterious hall with a secret map, Lin Sun was really shocked. He didn't need to think about it to know that if these two people got this fortune, they would definitely retaliate against him when they became stronger in the future. Fortunately, it was Yao Susu and Lian Fei's bad luck this time that they met Lin Sun, giving Lin Sun a chance to completely end this hatred. Brother Fei. Seeing that Lian Fei was killed, Yao Susu let out a mournful scream, with her face distorted. You all deserve to die. Her voice was full of resentment. Immediately, the secret map in her hand burst out a fierce clear light, with a vague power belonging to a sage surging, as if it was about to break out. Oh no, this woman is going to destroy the secret map and die with us. Quickly snatch that secret map. The old toad cried out in fright. Buzz. Lin Sun didn't need old toad's reminder to realize that something was wrong. Without hesitation, he took out the wordless pagoda, and a ray of golden Tao light swept out. At this moment, the only way Lin Sun could think of to seize the treasure was golden Tao light. Boom! Golden Tao light flowed and instantly bound the secret map in Yao Susu's hand. However, an unexpected scene occurred. As soon as the secret diagram came into contact with the dark gold Tao light, it actually underwent a sudden change and condensed into an expanse of words that rained down from light. Every word was green as if it was cast by Tao light, shining brightly and full of sage aura, grand and boundless. They flowed in the void, and every word seemed to explain the profound meaning of the Great Way. This, Lin Sun was stunned, so were Zhao Jingxian and Old Toad. Only Yao Susu, who was in anger and grief and was about to fight desperately, had a look of disbelief on her face when she caught a glimpse of the pagoda in Lin Sun's hand. She cried out involuntarily, "How could my father's pagoda fall into your hands?" No one paid attention to her, because at this moment Lin Sun and the others were all surprised to find that at this moment the hall had also changed. The ancient patterns on the four walls seemed to wake up from the endless years and emerged from the stone walls. After that, they surged towards the brilliant green markings of the Tao. This scene was too inconceivable. The diagrams on the four walls had been swallowed by an expanse of Tao markings that had appeared abruptly, and such a change was beyond the expectations of everyone. In the end, the ancient patterns on the stone walls all disappeared and were absorbed by the green Tao characters. At the same time, the Tao characters began to reorganize, and a Taoist hymn emerged in the void, stepping on the starry Han shoes, strolling up the Kunlun mountains. Lifting the sleeves to grasp the sun and the moon, all heavens enter the palm lines. I come from the mortal world, lightly knock on the door of longevity. The wonderful method reveals one's nature, the Tao is given to the predestined person. The Tao characters were brilliant, filled with holy light, branded in the void, and each word was deafening, with a kind of shocking sacred aura. For a moment the hall was silent. No one had expected that when the secret map in Yao Susu's hand came into contact with the black golden Tao light, it would produce such an incredible change. Not only did it evolve into mysterious and indescribable Tao characters, but it also made the ancient patterns on the four walls of the hall emerge. Finally, they integrated into the Tao characters and turned into a Taoist hymn. I see. No wonder my father always said that the secret map was incomplete and he was afraid that he could not find the real opportunity. It turns out that the secret has always been hidden in that tower. Unfortunately, my father never connected the two together. Yao Susu was in a daze, as if she had suffered a serious blow. She seemed to understand something. This pagoda and the secret map were obtained by your father from this place? All of a sudden, Lin Sun also realized something. He shouted and asked aloud. Yao Susu smiled sadly with a strange luster in her eyes. You want to know? I won't let you succeed. Immediately, a wisp of blood overflowed from the corner of her mouth, and her vitality quickly faded away. Finally, she lay on the ground. Old Toad rushed forward to check and then shook his head. She's hopeless. She broke her own heart meridian and died. Even immortals can't save her. This woman is really ruthless. Unfortunately, she's too stupid. Even if she doesn't say it, I can infer that the secret map in her hand must have an inextricable connection with the tower in Lin Sun's hand. Moreover, these two treasures should have been spread out from this hall. Zhao Jingxian put away the 9 dragons cauldron thoughtfully. Chapter 607. Yao Susu's death didn't make Lin Sun feel too much. Even if she didn't commit suicide, she would be killed in the end. The result was already doomed. What Lin Sun really cared about was whether the wordless pagoda and the secret map were really spread out from this mysterious hall. But who took them away in the beginning? What kind of accident happened that they were finally obtained by Yao Tuahai? Listening to what Yao Susu said just now, the only thing he was sure of was that even Yao Tuahai didn't find out the real mystery of the wordless pagoda and the secret map. Now, the secret map had disappeared and turned into a Taoist hymn, imprinted in the void. Every word was like a pearl, giving off a sacred aura, which seemed mysterious and unpredictable. This is fate, this is fate. Old Toad suddenly sighed with emotion, with a rare solemn look. If there was only that secret map, it would be impossible to see this scene in front of us. Similarly, without the wordless pagoda in your hand, it would be impossible for such a change to appear. He paused for a moment before he swept the entire hall with his gaze and continued. Most importantly, even if I possess the wordless pagoda and that secret map, if I didn't arrive here, I would be unable to make the ancient patterns on the wall's surface, and it would be impossible for such an inconceivable variable to occur. That is to say, the hall, the wordless pagoda and the secret map are interdependent, like a key and a lock. Only when they appear together can the scene we see in front of us be opened. Hearing this, Lin Sun and Zhao Jingxian deeply agreed. They all looked at the green Taoist hymn in the void. Every word was full of sacred aura, releasing the profound meaning of the Great Way, and was indescribably mysterious. This Taoist hymn is not simple either. It should have been left by the owner of this hall, and there are all kinds of unpredictable mysteries hidden in it. Old Toad's golden eyes shone as he observed it carefully. Don't forget that all kinds of ancient patterns on the stone walls of this hall are integrated into these Taoist texts, which are bound to contain profound meaning. What do you see? Lin Sun asked. He naturally knew that this Taoist hymn was not simple, otherwise, how could it produce such a magical change? Look at the first sentence, walking on the Kunlun Mountains with starry Han shoes. Old Toad's expression was solemn. Do you remember the 4 great ancient Tao ruins that this king once told you about? One of them is the Kunlun ruins, and according to the ancient rumors, if one wants to ascend to Kunlun, one must pass through the ancient road of stars that stretches across the void. Are you saying that the first sentence is related to entering the ancient Xinghan Road and heading to the Kunlun ruins? Both Lin Sun and Zhao Jingxian were surprised. It was the first time they had heard of such ancient secret. It's most probably so. The owner of this hall actually took the ancient Han path to be a Shu and strolled up the Kunlun Mountains. Just this boldness alone is sufficient to discern how terrifying this person's cultivation is. There was a hint of sorrow in Old Toad's voice. The Kunlun ruins, one of the 4 ancient Tao ruins, is even more mysterious than the ultimate ruins. Rumor has it that it's related to the true immortal path. Even among the ancient sages, almost no one was able to see the true face of Kunlun. Then what does the second sentence mean? Hearing this, Lin Sun couldn't help but ask. Lifting one sleeve to grasp the sun and the moon, the heavens enter the palm lines. Old Toad carefully thought about it, but he couldn't understand it no matter how hard he thought about it. He hesitated and said, "This should describe a kind of cultivation realm. When you reach this realm, you can grasp the sun and the moon with a wave of your sleeve and use the profound meaning of the Great Way in the palm of your hand." Lin Sun and Zhao Jingxian were stunned. If it was really as Old Toad said, then this realm was too terrifying and transcendent. It was impossible to speculate and measure at all. However, this sentence is definitely not as simple as it seems. Old Toad scratched his head. I always feel that this Taoist verse has a meaning and hides some kind of big secret. It's just that with our current ability, we can't further deduce and comprehend it. Lin Sun and Zhao Jingxian felt the same way. When I fought with that woman just now, she blocked my attack with just a secret map. I thought it was a great holy treasure, but who would have thought that it would eventually turn into a Taoist verse? From this alone, it can be seen how extraordinary this Taoist verse is. Zhao Jingxuan's clear eyes were full of luster, and there was a trace of indescribable emotion in her voice. Everything in front of them seemed too transcendent and supreme. Even with their current knowledge, they couldn't understand its mysteries. It could be imagined how lofty the cultivation realm of the master who had arranged all of this was. Buzz. At this time, the Taoist verse imprinted in the void suddenly fluctuated, and then turned into a bright rain of light, rushing into the wordless pagoda in Lin Sun's hand. Lin Sun's spirits were lifted, and he hurriedly went to explore it, but the result disappointed him. The rain of light transformed from the Taoist verse disappeared without a trace after entering the wordless pagoda. There was no change in it, and it didn't bring any changes to the wordless pagoda. In short, it was as if it had evaporated into thin air in the wordless pagoda. But even so, it still made Old Toad drool with envy. His eyes protruding, he stared at the wordless pagoda in Lin Sun's hand with a fanatical expression, like a hungry wolf staring at its prey. He murmured, "This is definitely a ***king treasure of extraordinary origin. Not only is it made of divine iron of fortune, but it also hides a great ancient secret." If Lin Sun hadn't put away the pagoda with extreme vigilance, Old Toad, who was greedy for money, would have rushed over and fought with Lin Sun for it. Old Toad wasn't annoyed that Lin Sun guarded against him like a thief, because he quickly shifted his gaze to the 3-foot Taoist platform at the end of the hall. That was where the great fortune hidden in this place was located. On the Taoist platform, there were scrolls of Taoist scriptures, copper chimes, wooden fish, horsetail whisks, rulers, bluish-white lamps, densely packed and dazzling. They were all overflowing with color and radiating divine splendor, dazzling the eyes. Lin Sun and Zhao Jingxian also came forward. The reason why they had appeared before was to stop Yao Susu and the others from obtaining the opportunity on the Taoist platform. Now that their competitors were gone, this fortune was at their fingertips. No wonder the path was filled with the skeletons of saints. They would rather die than wait for the opportunity in this hall. Now it seems that this fortune is indeed beyond imagination. Zhao Jingxian sighed. Lin Sun was deeply convinced. Every single treasure on the platform could shock the world. Any one of them would make the old monsters in the outside world jealous, and they would kill each other for it. Howl! Old Toad already couldn't wait any longer. Breathing heavily, it let out a howl that sounded like a wolf's howl. Like a reincarnated hungry ghost, it shot forward like an arrow. Swish! Excited, he waved his sleeves and was about to take them all away, but the treasure light burst and disappeared like a bubble. There was nothing there. What? An illusion? All the treasures on the Taoist platform have been taken away? Blue veins bulged on Old Toad's forehead. He grimaced in anger, beat his chest and stamped his feet. Lin Sun and Zhao Jingxian were also stunned. This great fortune had been taken away like a bubble long ago? Damn it, really damn it. This is obviously a prank. Old Toad let out an unwilling roar. After going through all sorts of explorations, they finally found a hidden Dao path with great difficulty. They followed a passageway filled with the corpses of saints to arrive here. They thought that a great fortune would be within their grasp. Who would have thought that it turned out to be a bubble illusion? Was this the so-called fortune makes fools of people? Look, Lin Sun suddenly said, pointing at the empty Taoist platform. With a flow of Taoist light, a pile of divine materials appeared. Nether void iron, 5 elements earth, cloud scar immortal gold. Old Toad's golden pupils burst with a blazing luster, and he became excited again. He waved his sleeves, and the result was still the same as before, disappearing like a bubble. Until a moment later, there was another flow of Taoist light, turning into one after another treasures full of sacred aura, shining brilliantly. Are you kidding me? Old Toad roared. He was really angry. A great fortune didn't exist at all. It was just an illusion. Who would be willing to accept this? Even Lin Sun and Zhao Jingxian felt extremely regretful that they could not get anything after entering the land of good fortune. There was nothing more depressing and unreconciling than this. It was heart-wrenching. My God! And the purple soul divine silver. The true feather of spirit phoenix. Old Toad's eyes widened. The treasures derived from the Taoist platform were so shocking that they were rare even in ancient times. They could be called treasures that could only be found by luck. But the worst part was that they were all illusions. Old Toad tried many times in succession, and finally stopped after a burst of unreconciled curses, with a face full of frustration and resentment. Damn it, it's really a scam. What Zixia Holy Mountain, Fangtsuan Mountain, Slanting Moon and 3 stars, the secret of Bodhi, the gift of Tao to the fated person, they all don't exist. If this isn't a scam, then what is? Old Toad squatted on the ground, so angry that his cheeks hurt. No wonder there are similar words on the 49 altars. They were obviously deceived. What's funny is that there are still corpses of saints on the path. If they knew that the fortune they were waiting for was just an illusion that didn't exist, I wonder what they would think. Lin Sun and Zhao Jingxian looked at each other. Let me try. Zhao Jingxian was also unwilling to give up. She took a deep breath, stepped forward, and stretched out a white and slender palm to grab at the Taoist platform. Crash! Those treasures burst like bubbles. Old Toad was just about to laugh and taunt Zhao Jingxian to give up as soon as possible. Who would have thought that at the last moment, there was a black stone that didn't disappear and was firmly grasped in Zhao Jingxuan's palm. Old Toad's eyes almost popped out. He got up with a jerk and shouted excitedly, Impossible! How could you grab a treasure as soon as you made a move? It's so unfair. Come on, let me see what treasure it is. With that, He was about to grab it, but Lin Sun slapped him on the back of the head and scolded, "Calm down, will you? You're too impatient." Chapter 608. Zhao Jingxian was also a little surprised. She hadn't expected that old Toad would come up empty-handed after so many attempts, while she herself had picked up a treasure as soon as she tried. But she quickly frowned as she didn't recognize this kind of treasure. Shaped like a cobblestone, it was black and heavy without any luster. It was like a stubborn stone that probably wouldn't be noticed even if it was thrown on the ground. However, Zhao Jingxuan's disappointment was quickly replaced by pleasant surprise, because no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't damage it in the slightest. "It can't be a kind of divine material, can it?" she mused. This object was like iron but not iron, like stone but not stone. It was solid and immortal, and looked ordinary but had a sense of simplicity. Let this king see. Old Toad had been drooling over it for a long time. He snatched it and then did something astonishing. He actually bit the black stone with his mouth. But the next moment, he screamed. This object was so hard that it almost broke his teeth. "This isn't a divine material." Old Toad gnashed his teeth, his golden eyes glowing as he stared at the black stone for a long time. Then, he came up with an answer that surprised both Lin Sun and Zhao Jingxian. "If this king's speculation is correct, this should be a seed." Old Toad's expression was a little strange. "Or rather, it's an egg or a stone embryo. Because there's a primordial source qi inside. If it's a seed, it can grow into a precious medicine. If it's an egg, it can hatch into a young beast. If it's a stone embryo, maybe." "Maybe what?" Lin Sun and Zhao Jingxian asked in unison. "Maybe it'll give birth to a spiritual embryo." Old Toad's words made Lin Sun realize that Zhao Jingxian had picked up a treasure this time. It was already very extraordinary that this object could appear in this mysterious hall. If it could also give birth to some kind of mysterious life, it was bound to be extraordinary. In ancient times, this kind of treasure was called Source Spirit Stone, implying that it nurtured some kind of unfathomable life. Old Toad's shifty eyes kept glancing at the black stone in Zhao Jingxuan's hand. "Unfortunately, if it's a seed, it needs a special secret method to cultivate it. If it's an egg, it also needs a secret method to gestate it. If it's an embryo, it needs to wait for the right time to be born." "Old Toad, what are you trying to say?" Zhao Jingxian frowned. "Ahem, this king just wants to say that even if this treasure falls into your hands, it will be very difficult for it to transform. Why don't you give it to this king?" Old Toad's face was full of hope. "When this king cultivates some peerless precious medicine, or an ancient divine beast, or a spirit of heaven and earth, I'll return it to you. How about that?" "Dream on." Zhao Jingxian flatly refused. As she spoke, she put away the mysterious black origin spirit stone. Old Toad was instantly gloomy. Gnashing his teeth, he stared at the 3-foot Dao platform not far away. The dazzling array of treasures swirled around it. "This king doesn't believe that I won't be able to obtain any benefits." The old Toad let out a loud roar and began to move again. However, after several attempts, those treasures all turned into bubbles and disappeared. "It's not fair. This king is king unfair. This king is a natural 3-legged golden toad with great luck. Why can't I even obtain a single treasure?" Old Toad was so mad that its eyes were red. Lin Sun looked at this incomparably greedy guy with some pity, then stepped forward and said, "Let me try." With that, he waved his sleeve, but not to collect the treasures on the Dao platform, but to take away the entire 3-foot Dao platform. The old Toad's eyeballs almost fell out of their sockets. It stomped its feet and said, "Damn it, this works too? Why didn't this king think of this?" Zhao Jingxian was also a little dazed. What did it mean to scrape the ground 3 feet and leave nothing behind? Lin Sun's current actions perfectly illustrated this point. He actually wanted to take away the entire Dao platform. Who would have dared to imagine this? Boom! But something unexpected happened. Not only did Lin Sun's action not take away the Tao platform, it even caused it to rumble and suddenly burst forth with a sparkling Tao light. Swish! As the Tao light swept over them, Lin Sun and the others felt their bodies shake. The stars in front of them moved, as if they had been thrown into a space-time tunnel, and they disappeared from the main hall. Clouds and mist rose as 9 towering mountains towered. Majestic and magnificent. This was a mysterious area. The void buzzed. Lin Sun and the others staggered and were moved here by a mysterious force. No. This king's treasure, this king's opportunity. I don't want to leave yet, the old toad still roared unwillingly. After a slight daze, Zhao Jingxian couldn't help but roll his eyes at Lin Sun, as if blaming him for being too reckless just now, triggering the restriction of the Tao platform and causing them to be inexplicably blown away. No matter how thick-skinned Lin Sun was, he felt a little embarrassed at this moment. He said, "Sorry, it was just an accident, just an accident." Accident, my ass. This king went through all kinds of hardships to find a great fortuitous opportunity, and it was destroyed by you just like that. The old toad was so angry that he wanted to rush up and bite Lin Sun to death. He really couldn't help but be angry. If the fortuitous encounter in the hall was lost, then it wouldn't matter. However, there was a pile of saint corpses in that passageway, and every single corpse had more or less Saint Tao treasures left behind. For example, the Taoist robe made of purple soul silver silk, the jade rui full of holy aura. Those were all lucky chances. But now they were all gone. When the old toad thought of this, his heart seemed to bleed, and he was extremely distressed. In fact, Lin Sun was not reconciled to it, but it had happened, and it was useless to think about it. Damn it, one of you got an invaluable source spirit stone, and the other put a Taoist hymn with a big secret in the pagoda, but I got nothing. The old toad looked resentful. Lin Sun really couldn't stand the old toad's resentful look, and suddenly said, "Old toad, look at this place. There are 9 holy mountains standing here. Is it possible that this is the real lucky chance?" The old toad was stunned. Looking around, he found that they had come to a mysterious area. In the distance, there were 9 mountains arranged in a row, full of spirit and beauty, majestic and sacred. If one looked carefully, there was actually a hall standing towering at the peak of each of the 9 mountains, and they were faintly visible within the clouds and mist, causing them to seem extremely mysterious. This is... Sure enough, the old toad's attention was diverted. Excited, he began to look carefully. This made Lin Sun breathe a sigh of relief. Everything about the old toad was good, except that he was too greedy for money. His resentful look when he couldn't get a treasure could be described as horrifying. Look over there, there are 54 altars. They seem to be exactly the same as the ones we saw on the top of Zixia Holy Mountain. Zhao Jingxian pointed into the distance with a startled look. This king understands. This is still the world created by that lotus. The old toad slapped his thigh and said excitedly, "The 54 altars here should echo with the 54 altars on the top of Zixia Holy Mountain. When practitioners set foot on the altars from the outside world, they will be moved here." Lin Sun was stunned. "Doesn't this mean that this is also a lucky chance place?" "Exactly." The old toad was even more delighted. "Do you still remember that voice? A grain of sand contains 1,000 worlds. A body and mind are one. 10,000 reincarnations pass in an instant, and good fortune is only given to the fated one. This is a Buddhist hymn, which has long declared that this is the real place where the lucky chance is hidden." "What's the matter with the hall we just entered?" Lin Sun was a little stunned. "Is there not only one lucky chance place in this Zixia Holy Mountain, but 2? "You're right, but I'm sure that the lucky chance here must have been left by one person." The old toad seemed to realize something, and his eyes were shining with golden light. "This person is not only proficient in Buddhism and Taoism, but also has the inheritance of Taoism, and has great magical power. Only such a person would be able to create such an unbelievable setup in the purple cloud divine mountain. Think about it, when we arrived at Zixia Holy Mountain, everything we saw along the way seemed to be related to Buddhism in ancient times, such as the lotus, the Buddhist hymn, and the Mahayana secret text of Buddhism left on the altar. All of them seemed to say that the lucky chance of this Zixia Holy Mountain was destined to be left by a Taoist Buddhism practitioner. However, when we entered the mysterious palace, everything changed. The palace was divided into 33 levels, and each level was connected by 9 steps. At the end of the level was a prayer mat, which eventually transformed into a 3-foot-tall Tao platform. The old toad's saliva flew everywhere, deducing and elaborating. All of this belongs to the means of ancient Taoism. Speaking of this, he looked at Lin Sun and said, "The most important thing is the Taoist hymn you got. It's a secret language belonging to Taoism, which is completely different from the Buddhist hymn." Lin Sun and Zhao Jingxian listened carefully, and their hearts were quite disturbed. Thinking of what they saw and felt along the way, everything was indeed as the old toad had deduced. Taking all of this into account, we can roughly infer that this Zixia Holy Mountain is a layout with the power of Buddhism, which is visible on the surface and can be seen by everyone. And within it there are hidden opportunities of Taoism. It is something that can only be discovered and not sought. Only we are able to see this truth. Old Toad's expression was full of amazement. Using Buddhism as the surface and Tao as the core, possessing both Buddhism and Tao as one, he can do whatever he wants with ease. Even in the primordial times, this kind of person could be called a supreme overlord. It is indeed too inconceivable. I really do not dare to imagine just who was the great person from the ancient times who created all of this. Lin Sun was shocked, and a sense of awe arose in his heart. This was a kind of admiration, yearning, and vision. So, where we are now, there is also a lucky chance? Zhao Jingxian looked at the 9 mountains in the distance with a pair of clear eyes, and there was a touch of shock on her face. A lucky place hid so many wonders. This kind of means was simply to seize all the good fortune, which people could only look up to. Yes. The old toad's eyes lit up and he rubbed his palms together. This is called a winding road through each peak and a glimmer of hope at the darkest hour. I didn't get any benefits before, but this time, I'm going to do something big. Chapter 609. 9 mountains were arranged in a row, magnificent and majestic. There was an ancient palace on each of them. They were faintly discernible and mysterious, making one yearn for them. There was no doubt that this must also be a secret place where great opportunities were hidden. Originally, Lin Sun got nothing except a Taoist hymn with a big secret in that mysterious palace, so he was naturally unwilling to give up. But now that he knew that there was another opportunity in front of him, his state of mind was naturally refreshed, and all his unwillingness was swept away. Yes, we'll do something big this time. Lin Sun also sharpened his knife. However, just as they were pondering which mountain they should target, a ripple was suddenly emitted from an ancient altar not far away. Accompanied by the wave, a group of figures staggered out almost as if they were running for their lives. Damn it! What the hell is that place? It's full of hidden dangers. One wrong step and we'll be killed, causing our tribe to lose so many elites. Buddhist monks are really good people. They left opportunities and set up so many killing traps. Their means are too cruel. Those figures were the strong practitioners from the Herculean ox tribe. However, they were all in a mess at the moment. Their clothes were untidy, their hair was disheveled, and many of them were bathed in blood. Obviously, they had suffered a lot of injuries. As soon as they appeared, they started cursing and swearing. All of them were panicked, and their flustered and exasperated appearances caused others to be unable to help but wonder exactly what sort of test and killing intent they'd encountered on the way here to cause them to become like this. The only one who was unscathed was perhaps the young ox demon king, Niu Tunshan. His figure was as majestic as an iron tower, and his eyes were like lightning. He was domineering, with a kind of matchless prestige. But at the moment, his face was gloomy and ugly. However, when he noticed Lin Sun, Nyo Tunshin's face suddenly changed, and a trace of surprise flashed in his eyes. It seemed that he didn't expect that someone would come here before them. What? The human Xiozha ran ahead of us? At this time, the strong practitioners next to Nyo Tunshin also noticed Lin Sun and the others. They all looked at them with vigilance and killing intent. The atmosphere became a little tense for a while. The situation is not good. We have to take action quickly. The old toad frowned. Who would have thought that just as it was about to go on a killing spree, a group of powerhouses would suddenly appear, causing the situation to suddenly become delicate. However, the change of the situation was beyond Lin Sun's expectation. After the Herculean ox demons appeared, some nearby ancient altars began to rumble. Damn it! Don't let me see any bald donkeys from the Buddhist sect in the future. Otherwise, I'll kill one if I see one. What the hell is that place? Why is it so dangerous? More than half of our clan's experts have died there. Accompanied by waves of curses, the figures of experts flashed on every altar, like Meng Lianqing of the Golden Phoenix clan, Kong Xiu of the Cloud Python clan, Xian Luozi of the Xian Ao clan. They formed a dense mass of batches. However, all of them were in rather sorry states. Their clothes were dyed red with blood, and they seemed as if they hadn't recovered from their shock. As soon as they appeared, they started cursing loudly, and it was shocking. It would appear that the passageways on the 54 altars are not safe either. They are filled with all sorts of dangers. That is the reason why those fellows were so frantic. They must have lost a lot of manpower. The old toad immediately gloated. Lin Sun and Zhao Jingxian could roughly guess the reason, but they couldn't laugh at the moment. The 9 mountains stood there, and the opportunity must be hidden at the top of the 9 mountains. Now that the powerhouses of all clans had come, it was conceivable that there would be a lot of bloody killing in the next fight for the opportunity. Junior sister Zhao, you came ahead of time? Suddenly, an exclamation sounded in the distance. It was Xiao Ran, Yunche, and the others who came out of an altar one after another. It was Su Xingfeng who spoke. When they saw that Lin Sun, Zhao Jingxian, and the old toad seemed to have arrived ahead of time and were safe and sound, they couldn't help but be a little surprised. Junior sister Zhao, come here. Xiao Ran spoke in a gentle voice, and his bearing was as aloof as before. Zhao Jingxian hesitated and looked at Lin Sun. Lin Sun remained calm and transmitted his voice. It's time to settle the grievances between me and that assassin. Let's go. Zhao Jingxian immediately stopped hesitating. She had never been a woman without a mind of her own, but in front of Lin Sun, she was willing to respect his feelings and decisions. The old toad saw all this from the side and couldn't help sighing inwardly. This is a woman with great wisdom. If she really took a fancy to this kid, I'm afraid he wouldn't be able to fly out of her palm for the rest of his life. Junior sister Zhao, how did you get here? Su Xingfeng couldn't help asking as soon as Lin Sun and the others approached. We took another route. Zhao Jingshuan's answer was light and breezy. Su Xingfeng was obviously very dissatisfied with this answer. He couldn't help but frown as he looked at Zhao Jingxian, then at Lin Sun and the old toad. In the end, he held back and didn't say anything. I'm relieved that you were able to arrive safely. Xiao Ran sighed with emotion. The road just now was full of killing intent. Even we almost suffered a calamity. We were lucky to arrive here safely. It's more than just lucky. Compared to the other clans and forces, you didn't lose a single person. The old toad's voice was sarcastic. Perhaps it was because of his relationship with Lin Sun, but he had always disliked these descendants of the Holy Land of Spirit Treasures. Do you want us to suffer losses? When Xiang was furious as he glared at the old toad and scolded. This king only said that you were very lucky. Which ear of yours heard that this king was cursing you? Little wimpy brat, you're just being unreasonable. The old toad also glared and didn't budge an inch. Yun-Che, who had been silent all this time, also couldn't stand it anymore and said, "Who said we didn't suffer losses? If we didn't have the golden cicada talisman, we—" Before he could finish, Su Xingfeng scolded him sternly, "Junior brother Yun-Che, don't say so much." Yun-Che obviously also realized that something was wrong. His expression changed slightly and he immediately shut his mouth. Even so, Lin Sun, who had seen all this, still had a hint of understanding in his heart. Obviously, the reason why Xiao Ran's party had been able to arrive here earlier was because they had relied on the life-saving method of the golden cicada talisman. This also meant that someone in Xiao Ran's party must have used up the golden cicada talisman. Who could it be? Lin Sun couldn't tell at the moment, but this was definitely valuable information. If there was a conflict with them, he might be able to kill one of them. Everyone, there are a total of 9 mountains here. My Herculean ox tribe should occupy the first one from the left. Does anyone have any objections? Suddenly, a muffled thunder-like shout sounded in the field. Niu Tunshan's eyes were like sharp blades as he glanced at the audience. His whole body was overflowing with black light, and his domineering aura was full of threat. At this moment, the heroes of all clans had arrived, each occupying a side. Their eyes were shining as they looked at the 9 mountains in the distance. When they heard Niu Tunshan's words, many strong people's faces darkened. This was equivalent to directly dividing up and occupying the opportunity? Humph! Your Herculean ox tribe is too overbearing. There are so many people here, why do you want to occupy one of the mountains? A feminine and shrill voice sounded. It was faintly discernible in the field, making it impossible to tell where it came from. Why? Niu Tunshan laughed. His voice was like a great bell, shaking the world. He suddenly stretched out his hand and made a grabbing motion. The void suddenly exploded, and a figure was pulled out from among the strong Fire Crow tribe not far away. Bang! After that, Niu Tunshan's hand was like a blade that slashed down fiercely. The figure was directly slashed into 2, causing blood to flow like a waterfall that sprayed all over the ground, and it was an extremely bloody scene. He'd attacked without holding back in the slightest in front of all the experts, and he'd killed with a single strike. His domineering attitude caused the expressions of everyone present to change greatly. That's all you've got? You dare ask me why? Niu Tunshan was disdainful, and the space between his brows was filled with disdain. Who else is disgruntled? Feel free to step forward. I'll accompany all of you. The surroundings were deathly silent. Many experts were furious, but they didn't dare speak. It couldn't be helped. All of them knew that Niu Tunshan was too formidable and domineering. He was like a demon king among bulls, and they couldn't go against him with force. Fellow Taoist, the opportunity has no owner, and everyone should seize it by their own ability. If you occupy a mountain merely because of what you said, then I believe that no one here would be disgruntled. Unexpectedly, at this moment, Xiao Ran, who'd always been otherworldly like a wild crane, had actually spoken. His voice was warm and indifferent, yet it resounded through every inch of the surroundings. Lin Sun couldn't help but be slightly surprised by this. Up until now, he was still slightly fearful of Xiao Ran, and he was slightly unable to see through Xiao Ran. And who are you? In the distance, Niu Tunshan's face darkened, and his eyes swept over like cold lightning. Xiao Ran from the Holy Land of Spirit Treasure. Xiao Ran smiled and spoke. His whole body was overflowing with Taoist aura, and he fought against Niu Tunshan. Both of them had their own strengths, and neither was weaker. This caused many of the experts present to look askance at him. So you're an expert of the human clan. I've heard of the Holy Land of Spirit Treasure, but I've never heard of a person named Xiao Ran. Niu Tunshan's voice was cold, and his aura became more and more powerful. It swept over like a dark cloud. I'm ashamed. I'm just a nobody, and I'm only considered mediocre in the holy land of spirit treasure. I've embarrassed myself in front of you." Xiao Ran's voice was warm, and his temperament became more and more otherworldly. In the confrontation with Niu Tunshan's aura, he didn't even take a step back. This made the experts present more and more frightened, and they realized how terrifying Xiao Ran was. Many forces couldn't help but secretly communicate with each other, and they were a little wary of Xiao Ran. It turns out that Xiao Ran is also taking this opportunity to show his strength and frighten those experts. In this way, some opponents who know that they are not as good as him will not dare to offend him in the next fight for the opportunity. Lin Sun thought to himself. Niu Tunshan relied on killing people to establish his prestige, but Xiao Ran, on the contrary, was taking advantage of the confrontation with Niu Tunshan to establish his prestige. Since he dared to do this, did it mean that he had the confidence to compete with Niu Tunshan? Suddenly, Niu Tunshan laughed and restrained his aura and killing intent. He said, "You're very smart, human. Unfortunately, I don't have time to talk nonsense with you. Since no one wants to let go of this opportunity, let's use our own means." "That's for the best." Xiao Ran smiled, as indifferent as ever. That kind of transcendent demeanor had its own power that could not be ignored. "This guy is not simple." Old Toad secretly transmitted his voice with emotion. Lin Sun had the same feeling. Among the descendants of the Holy Land of Spirit Treasure, Xiao Ran was undoubtedly the one he couldn't see through the most. Chapter 610. As expected, a battle to seize the fortuitous encounter erupted. The experts of the various clans made a move at the first possible moment, and they swarmed towards the 9 mountains in the distance. For a time, streaks of dazzling and resplendent light rained down like rain while various tyrannical auras raged, causing this area to become turbulent. Kill. A group of fire crow experts attacked, and they were like numerous black, scorching suns as they flew forward. The one in the lead was a holy sun-level figure. Flames surged around his body, burning to the point space warped as he led his clansmen to soar through the sky with the intention of being the first to ascend a mountain. Swish! A green rain of swords appeared abruptly and covered the heavens and the earth. It was the holy son of the Green WRM clan, and he held a brilliant green spirit sword as he soared through the sky to intercept them. 6 fire crow experts were killed right away, and their flesh and blood rained down. The eyes of the Fire Crow clan's holy son in the lead were icy cold and furious. He executed a secret technique and launched an attack, and a battle instantly erupted between the 2 clans. The sounds of battle shook the heavens while blood dyed the sky red. It was extremely intense. Bang! Not far away, an enormous snow eagle soared into the sky. Its wings were like blades, and it swept up a storm as it charged towards the holy son of the Cloud Python clan, Graceful Peacock. Graceful Peacock grunted coldly and suddenly let out a loud roar. The sound wave seemed material as it interweaved with a terrifying glow of the Tao, and it was like a thunderclap that shook the sky as it spread out and shattered space. In an instant, the enormous snow eagle's body stiffened, and it coughed up blood from its heavy injuries. It was almost killed on the spot. "Get lost!" In front of another mountain, the Golden Phoenix clan's holy daughter, Meng Lianqing, shouted. She'd suffered an attack as well. Her opponent was an expert from the Python clan. His body was tall and robust, and his entire body was covered in snake scales. He held a pair of enormous black axes in his large hands. His might was domineering as his axes swept through the sky, and he erupted with shocking divine strength that could easily split mountains and trample through plains. Bang! A pair of enormous axes emitted a dazzling light as they collided with an ancient lamp. The ancient lamp seemed inconspicuous, but when controlled by Meng Lianqing, it instantly erupted with a rain of light that covered the sky, and it forcefully pushed back the pair of enormous axes. Meng Lianqing's entire body was suffused with golden light as if she'd walked out from a god. Her beautiful eyes contained killing intent, and the ancient lamp in her hand emitted a rain of light that pierced through space. This ancient lamp was her ancestral treasure. She rarely used it, but at this moment, she no longer held it back. She didn't want to waste any more time. She wanted to seize the opportunity as soon as possible. The enormous axe and ancient lamp collided a few times, causing divine radiance to shoot towards the surroundings and deafening and terrifying explosions to resound. Puff! In the end, the ancient lamp sprayed out a rain of light that condensed into a mysterious symbol that instantly pierced through the head of the giant Python clan's expert, and the enormous corpse crashed to the ground. Ah! A scream came from a nearby mountain. A strong silver spirit was killed. His opponent was the holy son of the Xian Ao clan, Xian Luozi. This person had a head of long azure hair, and his figure was slender and dignified. His entire body was filled with a dreamlike blue mist, and he was extremely dazzling. He held a dark blue jade-like spear in his hand. It was terrifyingly sharp and flowed with Tao aura as he led his clansmen forward. Puff, puff, puff. Blood splattered all the way, and blood-curdling screams filled the air. Xian Luozi's fighting methods were ruthless, accurate, and ruthless. He showed off his abilities and killed mercilessly. The dark blue spear was magnificent and dreamlike, but it set off a trail of blood along the way. This was a battle for opportunities. It had always been so cruel and bloody, and there was no luck to speak of. And this was only a part of the battle in this area. There were a total of 9 mountains here, standing in a row. At this moment, after the battle had begun, a bloody battle was taking place in front of each mountain. Boom! In front of the first mountain from the left, Niu Tunshin roared. He held a black trident in his hand, and his whole body was full of blood qi. He broke out and waved the trident. The spiritual energy all over his body rushed up like a hurricane, and he was like a devil incarnate roaring through the world. More than a dozen experts of an entire clan near him didn't have time to dodge and were all killed by this strike. At that moment, blood and minced meat flew everywhere, falling like a torrential downpour. The experts in the distance were shocked and their scalps tingled. This was Niu Tunshin, so tyrannical and terrifying. It was the same on Lin Sun's side. It was full of danger. All kinds of treasures danced in the void, secret techniques and battle techniques collided, sand and stones flew, and flames rose. Lin Sun, Zhao Jingxian, Old Toad, Xiao Ran, and the other descendants of the Holy Land of Spirit treasures charged together, but they didn't feel much pressure. Moreover, Xiao Ran's performance was extremely dazzling at this moment, and he could be said to be in the limelight. Mist rose from his body, aloof and calm. He led the way in front, and wherever he passed, there was almost no one who could match him. With the help of Zhao Jingxian, Su Xingfeng, Wen Xiang, Gong Yangyu, Yunshe, and the others, they were like a sharp blade, advancing quickly and climbing up one of the mountains. Of course, Lin Sun also played a big role. It wasn't that his performance was very eye-catching, but that when many experts recognized him, they were so scared that they retreated before the battle even started. This was the power of prestige. In the previous period of time, Lin Sun had single-handedly defeated the experts of the various clans, killing a bloody path that was invincible. Even the saints were frightened, and they didn't dare to fight against him. Such a brilliant and bloody battle record had already caused a stir in the demon saint's secret realm, and even the big shots outside the ultimate were alarmed. Under such circumstances, when they recognized Lin Sun, the young demon god of the human race, who dared to provoke him, was it because they didn't want to live? Therefore, in comparison, although there were obstacles on their way forward, it wasn't too dangerous. Soon, Lin Sun and the others reached the top of the mountain. The place was misty, and there stood an ancient palace. It was the same for the other 8 mountains. The clans led by Niu Tunshin, Kong Xiu, Meng Lianqing, and Xian Luozi had already climbed different mountains. On each mountain stood a palace, grand and majestic, solemn and sacred, which made people yearn for it. The opportunity is right in front of us. When they reached the top of the mountain, Xiao Ran's expression became relaxed, and there was even a hint of passion in his eyes as he looked at the magnificent ancient palace. Let's go. Without hesitation, Xiao Ran entered the palace alone. Zhao Jingxian followed him closely. However, when Lin Sun was about to step into the palace, his whole body stiffened, and his pupils suddenly shrank. He felt an unprecedented sense of fatal danger, which made his hair stand on end. Swish! A flash of cold light suddenly appeared from the void behind him. It was incredibly fast, as if it had been waiting for an opportunity to kill Lin Sun the moment he stepped into the hall. It was a touch of sword intent. Lin Sun could perceive that this touch of sword intent was exactly the same as the previous two attacks, which didn't surprise him. From the moment he decided to climb the mountain with Xiao Ran, Lin Sun had been ready to fight with the mysterious assassin. However, he didn't expect that the assassin was not Xiao Ran, because Xiao Ran was the first to step into the palace. Originally, Lin Sun was afraid of Xiao Ran, and he even subconsciously believed that Xiao Ran was the assassin. Who would have thought that the truth seemed to be wrong? The assassin was someone else. Who was it? All this flashed in Lin Sun's mind like a flash of lightning. Almost at the moment when the assassination appeared, Lin Sun also moved. Ice Drake steps. In an instant, his figure disappeared. Puff! The touch of sword intent pierced the air, smashing the void into pieces and splashing turbulence. It could be predicted that if Lin Sun didn't have time to dodge just now, he would be killed instantly. Boom! However, the opponent seemed to have guessed that it was impossible to kill Lin Sun with this blow. When Lin Sun just dodged, a silver necklace burst out from the void on the other side before he stood firm. This treasure made a soul-stirring sound, buzzing and shrouded Lin Sun's head. Almost at the same time, a thread-like flame penetrated the void and swept over silently. It seemed to be as thin as a cow's hair, but it was steaming with horrible tow of fire, which made people shudder. All of this had occurred too quickly. From the appearance of the sword insight to the attack of the silver necklace and strand of flames, it seemed as if it had been calculated precisely, and it was closely linked with each other, flawless and ruthless to the extreme. If it were other practitioners who were caught off guard, even if they could avoid the sword intent, it would be impossible for them to expect that there would be a more dangerous opportunity to kill them. Lin Sun really didn't expect it. He didn't have time to think about it at all. He suddenly released a horrible tow of fire. Bang! Behind Lin Sun, a phantom of hyena appeared, resisting the attack of the silver necklace, and its divine light burst out. Clang! At the same time, the broken sword swept up and blocked in front of Lin Sun, narrowly blocking the thread-like flame. The collision between the broken sword and the flame broke out a terrible wave. Lin Sun let out a muffled groan. His blood was boiling, and he almost coughed up blood. This time, although he was finally able to avert danger, he was still somewhat unable to endure the sudden attacks of these two kinds of attacks. In particular, the silver necklace was so heavy and terrifying that he felt a sharp pain in his back and his bones were almost broken. And the flame seemed inconspicuous, but its lethality was even more terrible. Fortunately, it was blocked by the broken sword. Otherwise, if it hurt him, the power of fire around it would be enough to cause great damage to Lin Sun in an instant. F*CKU. Do you want to die? Only now did Old Toad react. It could be seen how fast the series of attacks just now was. It happened almost in an instant. It could be said to be a soul-stirring moment. I haven't entered the hall to look for opportunities, but you can't help attacking me. It really surprises me. At this time, Lin Sun was already standing in a safe place. His expression was calm, but his black eyes were full of coldness and killing intent. There was an uncontrollable boiling anger in his heart. Opposite him, Su Xingfeng, Wen Xiang, and Gong Yangyu stood in different places. They looked a little surprised and solemn. It seemed that they didn't expect Lin Sun to be able to avoid this disaster. On the other side, Yun Che stood not far away from Old Toad. Obviously, he was silently restraining Old Toad to prevent it from intervening. The person who tried to assassinate me twice is you. Lin Sun's cold eyes finally fell on Gong Yangyu. He didn't expect this elegant and proud descendant of the Green Goat Spirit clan to be the mysterious assassin who came and went without a trace. Previously, Zhao Jingxian had said that Gong Yangyu was the most kind and pure among the descendants of the Spirit Treasure Holy Land. Who could have imagined that he was actually an assassin with exquisite assassination techniques? Chapter 6:11. Don't you think it's too late to know now? Gong Yangyu stood there with an elegant bearing, holding a gray spiritual sword. He was like a peerless swordsman, proud and calm. It's not too late. At least I understand that the descendants of the Holy Land of Spirit Treasure are just a bunch of despicable and shameless people. Lin Sun's black eyes became colder. He had never done anything wrong to the Holy Land of Spirit Treasure, but on the way to the secret land of Demon Saint, he was assassinated more than once. Lin Sun didn't bother to ask the reason. His heart was completely filled with killing intent, and he couldn't bear it anymore. Don't you think it's too late to know now? Gong Yangyu stood there with an elegant bearing, holding a gray spiritual sword. He was like a peerless swordsman, proud and calm. It's not too late. At least I understand that the descendants of the Holy Land of Spirit Treasure are just a bunch of despicable and shameless people. Lin Sun's black eyes became colder. He had never done anything wrong to the Holy Land of Spirit Treasure, but on the way to the secret land of Demon Saint, he was assassinated more than once. Lin Sun didn't bother to ask the reason. His heart was completely filled with killing intent, and he couldn't bear it anymore. Who would be able to endure being assassinated again and again? This was too much. Cut the crap. Kill him first. Su Xingfeng shouted. Time was running out. They not only had to kill Lin Sun this time, but they also had to fight for the opportunity in the ancient hall. They didn't want to waste any time. Boom. As expected, the battle broke out again. Su Xingfeng's whole body was burning with flames. Like a god of fire, he controlled the power of fire and attacked Lin Sun. Kill! When Xiang, the boy in colorful clothes, was even more direct. His figure flashed, and he rose into the air. He swung his silver collar and smashed it at Lin Sun. He looked like a young boy, but his fighting style was extremely domineering, and his means were cruel and direct. In particular, the silver necklace he wore was obviously a powerful artifact that could release a terrifying destructive power. When Lin Sun was assassinated just now, he was hit by this silver collar. He felt a sharp pain in his back, and his bones were almost broken. It was obvious how ferocious Wen Xiang's combat strength was. Whoosh! On the other side, Gong Yangyu also moved. His figure was like an indistinct gray light, ethereal and illusory like a ghost. He held the gray spirit sword in his hand, and his sword insight was swift, fierce, clean, and direct. He'd immediately retreated when his attack missed, and he'd vividly displayed the art of assassination. Just now, all of you joined forces to assassinate me, but you couldn't do anything to me. Now that we're fighting face to face, do you think you're worthy of being my enemy? With a long roar, Lin Sun's momentum changed. His black hair fluttered while cold bolts of lightning shot out from his eyes, and his handsome figure emanated clear divine radiance that surged like a tsunami. Moreover, a perfect and pure aura of the Tao flowed through his body, and his entire body was filled with an aura of slaughter that seemed capable of looking down upon the world and devouring the sky. The pitch-black broken blade emitted a silver light that was as dazzling as the stars. As if it was carrying the Milky Way, it let out an impassioned and sonorous roar, as if it was cheering for blood. This heaven-defying blade seemed to have awakened from its slumber at this moment. Boom! Lin Sun took a step forward, and a lifelike phantom of an ice dragon hovered in the air with its head held high. It stirred up the wind and clouds in the 9 heavens, as if it was clearing the way for him and sweeping away all obstacles. At this moment, Lin Sun indeed held nothing back, without any scruples. Kill! He waved the broken blade and fought fiercely with his opponent. In an instant, the void on the top of the mountain was in disorder, and the divine radiance roared. It was plunged into unprecedented turmoil and chaos. This was a peerless duel. Whether it was Su Xingfeng, Wen Xiang, or Gong Yangyu, they were all the proud sons of the younger generation. Their strength was even stronger than that of the ordinary saints. Now, the 3 of them went all out to besiege Lin Sun. It could be imagined how shocking this battle would be. However, the most eye-catching one was Lin Sun alone. Even if he was besieged, he was not suppressed at all. Instead, he dominated the battlefield. His divine power was disdainful, and he had a peerless edge. When this battle broke out, the powerhouses of all clans on the nearby mountains were alarmed, and they all looked sideways. In particular, when they saw that this battle was between the successor of the Holy Land of Spiritual Treasure and the young devil god of the human clan, the whole audience was in an uproar and shock. God, I'm not mistaken, right? They don't come from the same camp. Why are they killing each other now? Haha, even blood brothers will turn against each other in the face of fortuitous encounters. Looks like the successors of the numinous treasure Holy Lands are obviously unable to tolerate that young demon god taking a share of this fortuitous encounter. So, they've joined forces to eliminate that fellow. Ha ha ha, this couldn't be better. The young devil god has killed countless powerhouses of all clans, which has already aroused public anger and caused resentment. Now he is finally getting his retribution. All kinds of uproar, ridicule, and gloating sounded one after another. All of them wanted to see the world in chaos and didn't mind the matter getting bigger. There was no one who didn't fear Lin Sun, and many forces even hated him to the bone. Now that Lin Sun was besieged by the powerhouses of the same camp, how could these powerhouses not gloat? F***CKU. Laugh all you want. After I kill these despicable and shameless bastards, I'll settle accounts with you one by one. Old Toad flew into a rage and shouted at the powerhouses of all clans on the distant mountains. But soon, Old Toad didn't have time to uphold justice for Lin Sun. Opposite him, Yunche finally took action. Swish! A blood sword suddenly appeared, full of killing intent. The blood light was like lightning, and the power of destruction was strong. Obviously, Yunche's task was to contain and kill Old Toad. Boy, hurry up and kill those bastards, or I'll be in danger. Old Toad was so scared that he fled and shouted. Old Toad's vitality was extremely tenacious. Even the Dutian blood thunder couldn't kill him, but his combat effectiveness had always been very mediocre. So, in the face of Yunche's killing intent, he could only flee and dodge in a hurry, cursing and swearing, but there was nothing he could do. Boom! On the battlefield, Lin Sun's broken sword flew across the sky as he fought fiercely. Even he had to admit that Su Xingfeng, Wen Xiang, and Gong Yangyu were indeed very strong, stronger than Saintess Linlang and Sun Yu Shaosheng. However, Lin Sun was calm and unafraid. Back then, he had defeated the heroes of all clans by himself and killed several saint-level figures one after another. How could he be afraid of such a showdown? Kill! The cave heaven in his body was steaming, and a grand Taoist voice sounded from a simple and unadorned platform. All the power was running at full force, like the eruption of lava. His momentum grew stronger and stronger, and his temperament became more and more holy and transcendent, dissolving and suppressing all the killing intent. Su Xingfeng and the others all paled as they felt great pressure. Even though they already knew that Lin Sun's combat effectiveness was extremely heaven-defying, they didn't expect him to be so abnormal. They couldn't imagine that a youngster from the mortal world who had just entered the Tao Insight realm already had such heaven-defying combat effectiveness. It was simply incredible. Even in the ancient Desolation realm, he could be regarded as a monster and extremely rare. However, the more it was like this, the more intense their killing intent became. If they didn't kill such a heaven-defying person, what would happen if he grew up in the future? Without any hesitation, they all tried their best and used their trump card. They wanted to completely eliminate Lin Sun with this battle. Boom! Su Xingfeng took a deep breath, and his whole body was surrounded by flames. Tao runes lingered around him, burning the sky. He became more and more terrible. Void-burning evil skill. It was an ancient inheritance from the holy land of spiritual treasures, intertwined with Tao and Dharma. Once it was practiced, it could burn mountains and boil seas, and destroy the universe. In an instant, a rain of fire appeared, full of unpredictable Tao runes, burning and collapsing the void and shrouding Lin Sun. Clang! Almost at the same time, Lin Sun's broken sword glowed, and he used RFS to kill. However, this time, reaching for the stars was different from the past. Stars fell one by one, and the curtain of the eternal night fell. The fallen stars were stained with the magnificent luster of water, like a dream. The curtain of eternal night was like a black curtain of rain, covering the sky like a black storm. It was an aura full of the Tao of water, which made the RFS reaching for the stars suddenly have a kind of artistic conception power as vast as the sea. Boom! The void collapsed. Water and fire were incompatible, colliding with each other, and the terrible aftermath was like thunder, which made people's faces change. Puff! Su Xingfeng's entire body trembled, and he suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. A ghastly pale color appeared on his incomparably handsome face, and his eyes were filled with shock. His strongest attack had actually been broken just like that. Moreover, it had even caused him to suffer from a backlash, causing him to suffer heavy injuries. This was unacceptable to him. Unfortunately, Lin Sun didn't pay attention to him at this moment, because Wen Xiang also took action at the same time as Su Xingfeng. Buzz! A bright silver necklace in his hand emanated a mysterious fluctuation, and then the image of a fiend god that was over 30 m tall actually floated up into appearance. It was peerless and possessed boundless divine might. Boom! The phantom of the demon punched out, and the void collapsed inch by inch like a fragile paper. The overbearing power was indescribable. There was no doubt that this was also Wen Xiang's killing move. In the face of this blow, Lin Sun clenched his left hand into a fist, and a touch of madness flashed in his black eyes. He also punched out. Collapse of all spirits. This was the last move of 9 strikes for shaking heaven. Under this blow, the sky and the earth would be destroyed, and all living beings would perish. However, at this time, collapse of all spirits was superimposed with 8 forces, which gathered all the power of Mountain Splitter, Soul Shattering, Void Refining, Boa Dragon, Phoenix, Prison Suppression, and Sky Devourer. As soon as it was used, it produced infinite visions. Just one punch seemed to break the shackles of the universe, showing a scene of landslides, tsunamis, and destruction of all things. Dong! When Lin Sun's fist collided with the phantom of the demon, there seemed to be a shocking thunder on the top of the mountain, which made people's eardrums burst. Even on the nearby mountains, many strong people were shocked, their blood was boiling, and their faces changed constantly. What kind of peerless attack was this? It was immeasurable. But everyone saw that the phantom of the demon more than 30 meters high, which was peerless and mighty, was collapsing inch by inch in the confrontation of the 2 fists. Bang! 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 The phantom of the demon exploded like glass, turned into a rain of light, and finally disappeared in the void. The silver necklace also became dim and buzzed, as if it was unwilling to give up. Wen Xiang let out a scream as if he was struck by lightning. He couldn't help coughing up blood, and his childish face was twisted with pain. Obviously, that blow not only destroyed the phantom of the demon, but also caused Wen Xiang to suffer a heavy injury. Chapter 6:12. Hiss! There was a gasp from the audience, and the strong people of all races were shocked. The young demon god was too ferocious. With just one punch, he blew up a demon god's shadow? This guy was really abnormal. This was the thought of most strong people. However, before they could recover from the shock, something happened again at the top of the mountain. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Just as when Xiangang was defeated, thousands of figures suddenly appeared in the void near Lin Sun. Every one of them looked exactly the same as Gong Yangyu. They were like peerless sword cultivators, and their sharp auras covered the sky and covered the earth. All transformations Tao body. Although Lin Sun did not recognize the origin of this martial art, he had experienced it himself. Naturally, he knew that this was Gong Yangyu's trump card. One body could transform into thousands of figures, real and fake. It was impossible to tell which one was Gong Yangyu's real body with the naked eye and perception. It was unpredictable and unparalleled. Whoosh! Streaks of sharp sword chi covered the sky and the earth, crisscrossing like a rain of swords that covered the sky and the earth. All of them flew towards Lin Sun to kill him. Such a scene made the strong people of all races in the distance feel numb. If they were in Lin Sun's shoes, they would not know how to dodge at all. There were too many sword chi. It was as if thousands of peerless swordsmen were attacking at the same time. It was chilling and despairing. Boom! In the face of such an attack, a cold light flashed in Lin Sun's black eyes. Without hesitation, he displayed the ice dragon steps and attacked brazenly with the broken sword in his hand. Saber chi that was as resplendent as starlight swept out, shattering countless sword chi and annihilating countless figures. However, the terrible thing was that those figures were all illusions. As soon as they were destroyed, they reappeared and continued to besiege Lin Sun. It was as if there was no end to them, and the whole world was drowned. From beginning to end, no one could tell which one was Gong Yangyu's real body. This was the horror of the all transformations Tao body. The sword chi was like rain, and the thousands of figures covered the sky and the earth, attacking Lin Sun alone. Such a scene could be said to be shocking. Even the experts of the various races in the distance had no choice but to admit that this secret technique was absolutely a miraculous technique that shocked the ancients and dazzled the contemporaries. However, to everyone's surprise, even in such a situation, Lin Sun's face was as calm as snow, and he was still fighting fiercely. But in the eyes of the spectators, he seemed to be struggling in vain because he couldn't even distinguish his opponent's true body. So how was he supposed to fight this battle? Su Xingfeng wiped the blood off the corner of his mouth. His expression was cold and cruel. He was waiting for the moment when Lin Sun was defeated. In reality, he was extremely conflicted. In the past, he had always thought that Xiao Ran had obtained the myriad transformations Tao scripture. So he had always been extremely wary of Xiao Ran. Who would have thought that the one who hid the most was Gong Yangyu? When he learned of this fact, Su Xingfeng could not help but feel a chill in his heart. When it came to shrewdness and scheming, he knew that he would not lose to anyone. However, be it Xiao Ran or Gong Yangyu, their shrewdness was undoubtedly more impressive. Luckily, I haven't offended Gong Yangyu before. Otherwise, it would undoubtedly be equivalent to making an extremely difficult and formidable enemy. Su Xingfeng sighed in his heart. At this moment, even he had to admit that Gong Yangyu was extremely strong and had faintly completely suppressed Lin Sun. He was outstanding and stunning. On the other side, Wen Xiang also crawled up from the ground. His immature face was filled with malevolence. He was also waiting for an opportunity, planning to kill Lin Sun in one fell swoop the moment he could no longer hold on. "Brat, you must hold on." Old Toad was running for its life, shouting incessantly. Its body was already riddled with injuries, all caused by Yun Chei's sword of slaughter. However, it had to be said that Old Toad's vitality was too tenacious. Even though it was constantly injured, it was still alive and kicking, never collapsing. This made Yun Chei angry, but he was also helpless. He had never seen such a monster that could take a beating like this. It was simply like a cockroach that could not be killed. Lin Xian, I said that the next time we meet, you are destined to die. Now all of this is on the surface. You are at the end of your road. Gong Yangyu's elegant voice resounded in the air, drifting in all directions. No one knew where it came from. His silhouettes were countless, and his sword qi crisscrossed. It was as if he did not exist at all, yet he seemed to be everywhere, causing people to feel despair. Is that so? Suddenly, Lin Sun, who had been suppressed in everyone's eyes, suddenly soared into the air. Holding a broken blade, he broke through the heavy encirclement. Then, he stepped out into the air and headed straight in a certain direction. Idiot, I'm here. Gong Yangyu's mocking voice resounded in the distance. However, Lin Sun did not even turn his head. It was as if he had identified a certain target. His broken blade flashed, and he continued to attack. Haha, you won't be able to see through me. Unless a life and death realm king comes, no one can break my all transformations body. Your efforts are destined to be futile. You can't even find me. Don't you think it's laughable and comical? You really won't shed a tear until you see your coffin. Gong Yangyu's voice resounded everywhere in the air. His mockery was filled with contempt. This caused the hearts of the various experts in the distance to turn cold. Could it be that such a secret technique could not be broken? Boom! Just at this moment, Lin Sun suddenly stopped in the air. His figure flashed strangely, and he suddenly changed direction, charging towards the other side. The broken blade emitted an impassioned and clear cry. At this moment, Lin Sun actually used the burning sun style, without hesitation. You actually discovered it? In the direction Lin Sun attacked, the figure suddenly let out a cry of surprise. Obviously, he was Gong Yangyu himself. However, when he wanted to dodge this time, it was obviously too late. Boom! The place where the broken blade flashed was like a sun burning and destroying. It emitted an incomparably terrifying divine brilliance. It was vast and dazzling, and it illuminated the heavens and the earth. As the terrifying destruction swept out, the tens of thousands of figures in the field suddenly collapsed and disappeared. At the same time, Gong Yangyu let out a blood-curdling scream and flew out of the air. His hair was disheveled, his clothes were torn, and his entire body was covered in blood. He seemed to be heavily injured and on the verge of death. He lay on the ground, unable to get up. Everyone was shocked, and there was absolute silence. The All Transformations body scripture has actually been broken. How is this possible? Su Xingfeng's heart shook violently, and he turned pale with shock. Impossible! How can he be so powerful? When Xiang's body also stiffened, as if he had fallen into an ice cave. He felt a kind of fear. No one had expected that Gong Yangyu, who originally had the upper hand, would be found by Lin Sun and severely injured in one fell swoop. Was this a coincidence, or had Lin Sun already seen through the flaws of this secret method? No one knew. Only Lin Sun himself knew that he indeed could not see through it, but he had his own means to find Gong Yangyu's true body. It was the spirit-eating insect. This bug was specialized in devouring souls. When it appeared, it could instantly lock onto Gong Yangyu's soul in one of the figures. Without a doubt, that figure must be Gong Yangyu's true body. Impossible! How on earth did you do it? On the ground, Gong Yangyu coughed up blood. His face was ugly, and he no longer had his usual elegance and pride. Instead, he looked like a beggar on the verge of death, miserable and miserable. What answered him was Lin Sun's merciless killing. At this moment, how could Lin Sun still talk nonsense? Clang! The broken sword swept through the air. Lin Sun was like a demon, killing as fast as lightning. He did not intend to give Gong Yangyu any chance to survive. Su Xingfeng and Wen Xiang had already recovered from their shock. Seeing this scene, they did not hesitate to help. However, they were quickly defeated. At this moment, Lin Sun's aura was so strong that it disturbed the wind and clouds. He had a disdainful and invincible attitude. Who could resist him? Gong Yangyu tried his best to dodge and escape. However, his head was chopped off by Lin Sun, and his blood splattered everywhere. This made the hearts of everyone tremble. Too strong. Who could imagine that under such a siege, the young demon not only did not suffer a calamity, but instead reversed the situation and killed a top figure with one strike. However, the strange thing was that after Gong Yangyu's body exploded, it turned into a rain of light and disappeared. This startled everyone. Could it be that this was not his true body? Only Lin Sun frowned. He knew that this was Gong Yangyu's true body, but he used the golden cicada talisman before his death, just like a cicada shedding its shell. Sure enough, in a place not far away, Gong Yangyu's figure emerged. However, his face was pale at the moment, and he still looked seriously injured and dying. Go! In the distance, Su Xingfeng and Wen Xiang had already realized that something was wrong. They grabbed Gong Yangyu, turned around, and fled down the mountain. Want to leave? It's not that easy. Lin Sun's face darkened. He took out the insignificant bow and pulled the bowstring. Bang! 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 Soundless spiritual arrows shot out, piercing through the void. Puff! Although he had tried his best to dodge, Su Xingfeng still failed to do so. A spiritual arrow pierced through his back, and his body suddenly exploded. Unfortunately, Su Xingfeng also used the golden cicada talisman. In the end, he and Wen Xiang escaped together. However, Gong Yangyu did not escape death in the end. Although he escaped with the help of the golden cicada talisman, he had already been seriously injured when he fled. When he was shot by the insignificant spirit bow, he was unfortunately hit again. After uttering an unwilling scream, he completely turned into a cloud of blood mist and died. Even so, Lin Sun still hated Gong Yangyu. Just as he was about to chase Su Xingfeng and Wen Xiang, Old Toad suddenly let out a strange cry. It's over. I can't hold on any longer. Turning around, Lin Sun saw Old Toad was covered in blood and staggered. He was chased by Yun Che to a dead end. Lin Sun couldn't care about anything else and started to rescue him. Humph! Yun Che snorted coldly, as if he was a little unwilling. But in the end, he also realized that the situation was different, so he made a prompt decision to turn around and escape. Don't chase him. Miss Zhao is still inside. Seeing that Lin Sun was going to chase Yun Che, Old Toad hurriedly reminded him. Lin Sun was shocked and his face changed slightly. Although this battle didn't last long, it made a lot of noise. It stood to reason that both Xiao Ran and Zhao Jingxian should be alarmed at the first time. But until now, they didn't show up at all. Could it be that something had happened in that ancient hall? Right at this moment, a figure walked out from the entrance of the hall. His footsteps were composed, solitary, and extraordinary, and his bearing was misty like smoke. Shockingly, it was Xiao Ran. However, there was no figure of Zhao Jingxian. Chapter 6:13. On the top of the other 8 mountains, the strongmen of all clans were racing against time to search for opportunities. Only the place where Lin Sun was located was not peaceful. Indeed, who could imagine that there would be a fierce and bloody conflict between Lin Sun and the successor of the Holy Land of Numinous Treasure before they entered the ancient palace, and even couldn't judge what kind of opportunity was hidden in it. This was too surprising. But for Lin Sun, it was obvious that all this was premeditated. Fortunately, the assassination failed. Gong Yangyu died, and Su Xingfeng, Wen Xiang, and Yun Che escaped. However, when Lin Sun saw Xiao Ran walk out of the ancient palace alone, he didn't feel relaxed at all. He suddenly realized that although Xiao Ran didn't participate in the battle just now, who could guarantee that Xiao Ran didn't know all this? Lin Sun had never underestimated Xiao Ran. On the contrary, among the successors of the Holy Land of Spiritual Treasure, Xiao Ran was the one he couldn't see through the most. Previously, you single-handedly swept through the experts of the various clans. Now, you are able to single-handedly defeat junior brother Gong Yangyu and the others. Even I have to admit that you are indeed a rare character. Xiao Ran put his hands behind his back and walked leisurely. He looked at Lin Sun calmly and said with a trace of appreciation. It seemed that he didn't care about the fact that Lin Sun defeated Su Xingfeng and the others just now. He seemed too calm and casual. This made Lin Sun frown and say, "You should have known all this long ago, right?" Xiao Ran nodded and said, "Strictly speaking, I was going to take part in this operation, but I didn't intend to get involved in the end." "Why?" Lin Sun asked. Xiao Ran smiled and said, "It's very simple. You ought to be able to guess it. There's only one fortuitous encounter in this hall, and I don't want to miss it, nor do I want to compete and fight with my fellow brothers. So, I could only think of a way to make all of you stay outside." His smile was very calm and gentle, and his voice was indifferent, but it made Lin Sun's heart cold. He finally realized that this assassination against him was just Xiao Ran's plan to kill two birds with one stone. Not only did Xiao Ran assassinate him, but he also made Su Xingfeng and the others unable to enter the palace and compete with Xiao Ran for the opportunity. What about Su Xingfeng and the others? Did they know that they were actually also schemed by Xiao Ran? How shrewd! Such ruthless methods. For the sake of a fortuitous encounter, a trick of driving the tiger to swallow the wolf, you've schemed against everyone. If you grow up, you'll definitely become a formidable character of your generation. In the distance, Old Toad sighed ruefully. Xiao Ran smiled faintly and said, "I just don't want to fight with my fellow disciples, so I used a few tricks. Sorry for making a fool of myself." "What did you do to Miss Zhao?" Lin Sun's black eyes were cold. "Don't worry, since I can't bear to see my fellow disciples kill each other, I naturally won't be ruthless towards junior sister Zhao. She's currently resting in the main hall, so there won't be any accidents." Xiao Ran spoke casually as if he was chatting about daily life. Moreover, he answered every question. Not to mention anything else, merely his composed bearing was extraordinary. "Old Toad, go take a look." Lin Sun gave him a look, and the latter understood tacitly and rushed into the ancient hall. "In this way, you've already obtained the fortune within that hall?" Lin Sun's eyes were fixed on Xiao Ran. From the beginning to the end, he had never relaxed his vigilance. Xiao Ran kept a low profile, but the more he did so, the more Lin Sun feared him. "Not bad." Xiao Ran nodded and didn't deny it. "So, now that you've appeared, are you going to fight it out with me?" Lin Sun quietly clenched the broken sword. Unexpectedly, Xiao Ran shook his head and stared at Lin Sun for a long time. Then he sighed and said, "To be honest, I'm not sure that I can kill you now. You're very strong, and I feel a sense of danger from you. It's very unusual." He weighed his words carefully and spoke slowly, seeming to be extremely serious. "You won't be lonely if you have a real opponent in the struggle of Tao. You're very interesting. You're one of the most unique opponents I've ever seen since I started my cultivation. I'm looking forward to fighting with you again when the great world comes." Lin Sun frowned more and asked, "Why not now?" Xiao Ran smiled meaningfully. "It's still too early now, and the time isn't right. When the great battle of the world arrives, you'll understand that sometimes, if you have a worthy opponent, you'll be able to go further on the path of the great Tao." Lin Sun raised his eyebrows. "Do you regard me as a whetstone?" Xiao Ran smiled. "You can say that." Lin Sun thought for a while. "What if I don't agree today and insist on fighting with you?" Xiao Ran looked as indifferent as ever. "You have no chance." Clang! Lin Sun suddenly attacked with his broken sword. A waterfall-like starlight soared light crossed the void and chopped down. It was bright and terrible. This attack was really too sudden. If it were other practitioners, they would have no time to react at all. But Xiao Ran seemed to have expected it. He didn't move and just stood there with a smile. His temperament was like the clouds in the sky, indescribably transcendent. Puff. His body was cut into two, but there was no blood. Instead, it turned into a rain of light like a bubble and disappeared without a trace. I forgot to tell you. The myriad transformation Tao physique scripture was passed down by me to junior brother Gong Yongyu. Unfortunately, he was unable to comprehend its profundities in the end, and that's why he was killed by you. 300 meters away, Xiao Ran's figure emerged. With his hands behind his back, he looked back and smiled at Lin Sun, saying, "Goodbye." As his voice fell, his figure had already floated down the mountain. It seemed slow and leisurely, but in the blink of an eye, he disappeared. Lin Sun narrowed his eyes slightly, but in the end, he resisted the killing intent in his heart and didn't chase after him. But in the depths of his heart, there was some uneasiness. Xiao Ran's strength was unfathomable, and his shrewdness was profound. Unique and outstanding, he was unpredictable. He was definitely the most terrible opponent Lin Sun had ever seen since he started cultivating. You want me to be a whetstone? Let's see if you have the ability or not. Lin Sun withdrew his gaze and didn't think any more. He turned around and walked into the ancient hall. The ancient hall was quiet. The four walls were engraved with ancient patterns. In the center stood a simple stone tripod. There was nothing else. When Lin Sun entered, he saw Zhao Jingxian sitting cross-legged and Old Toad looking around. "Xiao Ran didn't hurt you, did he?" Lin Sun couldn't help asking. "No." Zhao Jingxian shook her head with a complicated expression. She told Lin Sun everything that had happened just now. It turned out that when she and Xiao Ran entered the hall together, they immediately discovered that there was a Taoist scripture hidden in the simple stone tripod in the center of the hall. Naturally, this was the opportunity hidden in the hall. However, when Zhao Jingxian was about to take action, she was attacked by Xiao Ran and instantly passed out. Fortunately, Xiao Ran didn't hurt her and just took away the Taoist scripture. Speaking of this, Zhao Jingxian couldn't help but show a trace of bitterness on her lips. She said, "This time, all our efforts are in vain. All the opportunities have gone to others." Lin Sun comforted her, "As long as you're fine." "Damn it, Xiao Ran is a bastard. Not only did he want to kill you, but also his fellow apprentices. All the opportunities were taken away by him." Old Toad was so angry that he cursed loudly, his face extremely ugly. "I didn't expect that senior brother Xiao Ran would do this. It's too unexpected." Zhao Jingxian sighed softly. Looking at the empty hall, there was a touch of disappointment on her face. She was also quite unwilling to accept the fact that the opportunity had been taken away. A Taoist scripture, Lin Sun was also speechless. Although he didn't know the origin of this Taoist scripture, there was no doubt that a scripture that could be hidden here must have an extraordinary origin. Not far away, an angry old toad was working hard to move the simple stone tripod, as if to take it away. But no matter how hard he tried, the stone tripod didn't move at all. This not only didn't make Old Toad depressed, but also made his eyes light up. "This thing seems to be a treasure too." He pulled himself together and took a deep breath. With his whole body glowing, he tried to take the stone tripod again. But the strange thing was that the stone tripod looked ordinary and inconspicuous, but it was as steady as Mount Tai and didn't move at all from beginning to end. "Damn it, can't I take it away?" Old Toad was so angry that his teeth ached. "Let me try." Lin Sun's heart moved. He also stepped forward and ran his strength to try to take it, but the result was the same. He couldn't move the stone tripod. "It's really unusual." Lin Sun's black eyes flashed with a touch of light. Without hesitation, he took out the wordless pagoda. Buzz. The pagoda glowed, enshrouded in magnificent gold, magnificent and sacred. The octagonal body of the pagoda respectively showed the sun, the moon, the mountains and rivers, the heavens and the earth, the stars in the sky, the ancient gods and so on. Such a scene was like a projection of the ancient world, imprinted on the pagoda, with a kind of majestic charm that contained the ages. Lin Sun was suddenly stunned. He had originally planned to take the simple stone tripod with the dark golden Tao light, but when he took out the wordless pagoda at this moment, he clearly sensed a different change from the past. The most prominent feature was the incomplete Wu character at the top of the pagoda. It had a spirituality and charm that had never been there before. Every stroke of the character seemed to gather the Taoist aura of the heavens, giving off an indescribable sense of shock and pressure. Could it be that after taking that mysterious Taoist hymn, this pagoda has undergone some subtle changes? Lin Sun's heart moved as he thought of that mysterious Taoist hymn. Stepping on the starry Han shoes, he strolled up the Kunlun mountains. Lifting his sleeves to embrace the sun and the moon, the heavens enter the palm lines. I come from the mortal world and knock lightly on the door of longevity. The wonderful method reveals one's nature, and the Tao is given to the predestined person. This Taoist hymn contained a great meaning. Every word contained a mysterious power. When this Taoist hymn appeared in the 33 halls last time, it absorbed all kinds of ancient patterns on the four walls of the hall. All this was enough to prove the mystery of this Taoist hymn. Unfortunately, it disappeared after entering the wordless pagoda, and no trace could be found. But Lin Sun didn't expect that at this moment, when he took out the wordless pagoda, the pagoda had undergone a subtle change without him knowing at all. What surprised Lin Sun most was that before he could figure out the reason for this change, an incredible change happened in front of him. Chapter 6:14. The ancient stone cauldron unexpectedly rumbled, causing Lin Sun and the others to be greatly shocked. Could it be that all of this was caused by the wordless pagoda? Before they could figure it out, the rumbling and fluctuations of the stone cauldron became louder and louder, like the divine sound of the great Tao, reverberating in the spacious and ancient hall, causing one's body to tremble and soul to resonate. Bang! At this moment, it wasn't just here. There was an ancient stone cauldron in every grand and magnificent ancient hall at the peak of the other 8 mountains, and all of them rumbled and shook along with it. The sudden change of this scene caused the experts of all clans to be taken by surprise, and their hearts trembled. In a trance, the experts of all clans that entered every hall seemed to have returned to the ancient times and arrived at a Taoist field. A figure sat high above the 33 heavens like a ruler that overlooked all living beings, and he was expounding the subtle profundities of the great Tao. His voice was ethereal and divine like the sound of nature, and it was indescribably profound and wonderful. This is the inheritance brand of an ancient Almighty, and it has appeared at this moment. Quickly meditate and comprehend it. Someone was excited as he noticed the clues within. Those that were able to enter the hall were all extraordinary figures of the various clans, and they practically understood at the first possible moment. They didn't hesitate to sit cross-legged on the ground and start to meditate and comprehend it. This was an inheritance brand, and it was even more precious and rare. There was only one chance, and if they missed it, they were bound to regret it for the rest of their lives. As for how much they could comprehend in the end, it depended on their own fortune. Ha ha ha, that bastard Xiao Ran thought he had calculated everything and seized all the fortuitous encounters. How could he possibly know that such an unfathomable inheritance and fortuitous encounter was hidden in this ancient hall? I can imagine how ugly his face will be when he finds out about all this. Ha! The old toad laughed wildly, carefree and excited. Lin Sun and Zhao Jingxian couldn't help but laugh as well. At this moment, they all sat cross-legged and carefully comprehended, listening to the ethereal and divine sound of the great Tao, and their bodies and minds were greatly moved. In a trance, it was as if they were dream-traversing the ancient times. An almighty figure that possessed supreme divine power sat above the 33 heavens of the Taoist field, and he was passing down scriptures and teaching the disciples of his sect, expounding on the profundities of the great Tao. That figure was too distant and imposing, impossible to see clearly. It was like a ruler that towered above the great Tao, comparable to heaven and earth. Its appearance couldn't be seen, and its form couldn't be touched. The voice that elaborated on the grand Tao was like an ancient bell and drum, and it was profound and unfathomable. It seemed to be emitted by everyone, yet when it entered everyone's ears, it revealed completely different profundities. Some people listened to the wonders of the Mahayana that belonged to Buddhism, some listened to the subtle mysteries that belonged to Taoism, and some listened to the wonders that were neither Buddhism nor Taoism. The profundities within it were all-encompassing, covered 100 schools of thought, and fused together. It was completely a form of the aura of the Tao that was filled with unfathomable profundities. Because the experts of the various races had different comprehension abilities and different paths towards the Tao, the profundities they heard and comprehended were different as well. The profundity of such an inheritance could be said to be like, a single word is a myriad of laws, and comprehension depends on one's fortune. There were 9 mountains, and each of them had 9 ancient palaces. When this mysterious and unfathomable power of inheritance was produced, the 9 mountains also rumbled, and an indescribable majestic power emerged. The experts of the various races that were halfway up the mountains and had no chance of reaching the peak felt their bodies shake before they were swept away by a shapeless force and teleported to the foot of the mountains. On the other hand, the experts of the various races that intended to charge up the mountains noticed at this moment that the 9 mountains were covered by terrifying restrictions, and they were unable to approach them any longer. What exactly happened? Many experts were astounded, and they stopped fighting and fighting. Since they couldn't even approach the mountains, it was utterly meaningless to continue fighting. It seems like the true inheritance of this place has emerged. The hearts of some trembled as they guessed a trace of an inkling. In this way, all of us cultivators that didn't enter the ancient palaces at the peak of the mountains have been completely eliminated? Many experts felt bitter in their hearts, and they had extremely dejected expressions. There were also ferocious figures that were unwilling to give up and wanted to forcefully ascend the mountains, yet they were shaken by the terrifying restrictions to the point they bled and couldn't take another step forward, so they could only give up. At this point, all the experts of the various races understood that they had indeed been eliminated. Damn it! At the foot of a mountain, Su Xingfeng almost gnashed his teeth into pieces while flames flickered in his eyes, and they were filled with rage. We actually missed this fortuitous encounter. When Xiang was in a daze, Yunche, who was beside him, also let out a sigh. Senior brother Gong Yangyu is also dead. This time, that guy really got lucky. Xiao Ran was silent. He raised his head and stared at the peak of the mountains. No one noticed that a trace of complex and deep unwillingness had surfaced in his eyes at this moment. No one noticed that his fingers, which were hidden in his sleeves, were tightly clenched. Originally, he thought that obtaining the scripture hidden in the stone cauldron was equivalent to obtaining this fortuitous encounter, and that he could return with full rewards without any regrets. Who would have thought that there was an even greater opportunity hidden within the palaces? If he had known this earlier, how could he have left so early? Regret and unwillingness surged up like a tide, pounding on Xiao Ran's heart, and he could no longer be as calm as he was before. I didn't expect this. Xiao Ran sighed lightly. He had calculated everything, but he didn't expect that there would be other mysteries within these 9 mountains. If he had known this earlier. Xiao Ran suddenly sucked in a deep breath. He couldn't continue thinking. Regret and unwillingness were already useless, and he could only endure and accept this failure. Humph. So what if I obtained the fortuitous encounter? When I leave this secret realm, I'll kill this kid and take all the fortuitous encounters he has. Su Xingfeng gritted his teeth. When he said this, when Xiang and Yunche's hearts moved, and their eyes flickered. That's right, this fortuitous encounter will eventually end. When they leave, they only need to borrow Elder Gao Yang's hand to kill that guy. Only Xiao Ran remained silent. No one knew what he was thinking at this moment. Outside the ruins of End, In front of the various clans and forces, the life-soul altars rumbled unceasingly. Waves circulated, and wisps of divine souls were transported back. These were the experts who had been eliminated in the fight for the fortuitous encounter. They were equipped with the life-soul-bone talismans, so they could escape from death. As for the experts who did not have the life-soul-bone talismans, they were destined to never return. The life-soul altars were constantly fluctuating, and this also meant that this bloody fight for the fortuitous encounter was extremely tragic. Many big shots' faces darkened, and their hearts were bleeding. Their clan's losses were too severe, and it was a huge blow to them. Some big shots, like the Herculean Bull clan, the Golden Phoenix clan, the Cloud Monkey clan, and the Mysterious Turtle clan, were all smiling and in high spirit. The experts of their clans had already reached the peak of the mountains, and were fighting for the fortuitous encounter. How could they not be happy? As the saying goes, when the moon shines on the 9 continents, some are happy and some are sad. This scene proved this saying. Elder Gao Yang was also very happy. The descendants of the Spirit Treasure Holy Land had also reached one of the 9 mountains. Humph! In the distance, Granny Tiansha of the Dragon Whale clan snorted coldly. Her face was ashen, and she said, "It seems that you are very happy, my friend." Elder Gao Yang immediately had a headache. Because Lin Sun killed a group of powerhouses from the Dragon Whale clan, Granny Tiansha became extremely irritable. Even her words became harsh and unpleasant. However, before Elder Gao Yang could speak, someone beside him said coldly, "Fellow Taoist, regardless of whether you're happy or not, all the information has proven that the bloodthirsty young man ascended the godly mountain with the successor of your numinous treasure sacred land. This is enough to prove that the young man is from your numinous treasure sacred land." The one who spoke was an important figure from the Blood Lion clan. All the powerhouses of their clan had been annihilated, and almost all of them died in Lin Sun's hands. Therefore, he was not at all polite with his words. A life for a life. There must be an explanation for this. That's right. That young man is unscrupulous and ruthless. He has angered everyone. If we don't capture and kill him, we will not rest. Instantly, the important figures from the Demonic Elephant clan, the Blackwood clan, and the Jade Scale clan all voiced out their opinions. They looked like they were going to condemn Elder Gao Yang. They were truly infuriated. A mere young man from the human clan had defeated all the powerhouses from their clans. How could they accept this? Elder Gao Yang felt the pressure multiplying and his head swelled. Just then, a piece of news was heard. The young demon is fighting with the descendants of the Spirit Treasure Holy Land. Boom! A single stone raised 1,000 ripples. The entire area was in an uproar. They couldn't believe what they were hearing. Wasn't the young demon from the Spirit Treasure Holy Land? Why were they killing each other? Granny Heaven Killer and the other important figures who were initially here to denounce Lin Fan were stumped as well. What the hell was going on right now? Elder Gao Yang's face darkened. Were they fighting each other? That shouldn't be. Before long, more concrete news came out from the mysterious realm of demons. The descendants of the Spirit Treasure Holy Land surrounded the young demon in an attempt to stop him from taking the opportunity. Who would have thought that they would be defeated by the young demon? It's too scary. The young demon fought against 3 of them alone and severely injured 2 of them. He even killed one of them on the spot. The entire place was in an uproar when they heard the news. Everyone was in an uproar. The important figures from the various clans were gloating. That young man was so cruel that he had no scruples. He even dared to kill the descendants of the Spirit Treasure Holy Land. He had guts. It was especially so for Grandmother Tiansha and the other big shot. Their expressions were extremely strange. They had been denouncing Elder Gao Yang, but who would have thought that in the blink of an eye, the ferocious young man would start a fight with the successor of the Spirit Treasure Holy Land. Hee, fellow cultivator, it seems that the Spirit Treasure Holy Land has produced an extraordinary person. His methods are really vicious. Fellow cultivator, What else do you have to say? In my opinion, such a disgraceful person should be killed. Otherwise, he will harm the spirit treasure Holy Land sooner or later. Sigh, I really didn't expect that young man to be so heartless. He even killed his own people. And why do you look so pale? Those important figures spoke sarcastically, their words full of sarcasm and ridicule. Elder Gao Yang's body had long been stiff. His beard and hair were standing on end, his face was livid, and the blue veins on his forehead were bulging. There was an unspeakable anger in his heart. That young man dared to be so disgraceful. He should be killed. Originally, after hearing a series of glorious deeds Lin Sun had done in the secret realm of demonic saints, Elder Gao Yang had the heart to cherish talent. He planned to save the young man at the end of this operation, even at the cost of paying some price. It would be better if he could be recruited into the Spirit Treasure Holy Land. But at this moment, he couldn't be bothered to care about who exactly that ferocious youth was, nor did he care exactly what caused this incident of killing each other to occur. He only knew that since the young man dared to kill the descendants of the Spirit Treasure Holy Land, he would never be forgiven. Chapter 6:15. In the ancient temple, the sound of Tao was ethereal, mysterious, and sacred. Lin Sun sat cross-legged on the ground and fell into a deep meditation. His body was filled with wisps of faint Tao runes. Behind his head, 3 white jade-like treasure lights appeared and evolved into a round wheel, which was auspicious and brilliant like a mirror, which made him look ethereal and unearthly. The sound of Tao was ethereal, as if it came from above the 33 levels of heaven. It was like Lin Sun was sleepwalking in the ancient Taoist field and listening to the Supreme Mighty explaining the essence of Tao. Lin Sun was deeply touched from inside to outside. He was immersed in it and was in a trance. This so-called Tao was nameless and indescribable, yet it could be comprehended, observed, and verified. While Lin Sun was meditating, the mirror-like disc behind his head became more and more brilliant and magical. In the end, the disc behind his head spun, and it actually revealed a heavenly abode. Divine radiance rumbled within the abode while auspicious rays of light sprayed out, and the aura of the Tao was enshrouded within it. It was like the embryonic form of a world, and an ancient Tao platform stood towering within it while 3 glows that seemed like white jade coiled around the Tao platform, causing it to seem divine and profound. He was deducing his own Tao path. What was reflected in the disc was the unique Tao path that Lin Sun had now, the cave and the source Tao platform in his body. Fortunately, Zhao Jingxian and Old Toad were also meditating on Tao path at the moment and didn't notice this scene. Otherwise, they would be shocked speechless. Because the cave in Lin Sun's body was too extraordinary and unique, it seemed too shocking and different to open a Tao platform in the initial stage of cave heaven. It should be known that for ordinary cultivators, only when they reach the heavenly abode realm would they be able to construct their own heavenly abode platform. Even the talents like Zhao Jingxian and Xiao Ran could build their own Tao platform in the initial stage of cave heaven. However, it was almost impossible to find someone like Lin Sun, who was surrounded by 3 mysterious treasure lights on the Tao platform of the Dongtian. Lin Sun was unaware of all this. He sensed something in his heart and fell into a deep level of comprehension. He verified the profundities he heard with his own path towards the Tao, and he was greatly enlightened. Some of the details and bewilderment he'd overlooked in his cultivation in the past had appeared one by one, and he'd completely comprehended them and understood them clearly. Later, Lin Sun no longer stuck to meditation and began to take this opportunity to rebuild his own Tao path. There were 5 realms of cultivation: martial realm, gang spirit, sea spirit, cave heaven, and wheel development. The martial realm was divided into 9 levels: Qi guiding, inner strength, mansion opening, orifices clearing, marrow cleansing, blood burning, small circulation, big circulation, and spirit transformation. Each realm had its own wonders and would bring new changes to practitioners' power. It seemed simple, but it was the cornerstone of Tao Path. Of Tao Path. And Tao Path of Path. There was a saying, one could not reach 1,000 miles without a step, and a stream without a stream. Of Tao Path. Of Tao Tao cultivation. In Tao Tao Lin Tao of sect path. And of Tao path of cultivation. And it. Fortunately, he met Master Lu and embarked on the path of cultivation. However, due to his damaged body, his achievements were limited even after he embarked on the path of cultivation. Path of and Tao path of. In Tao of Tao path of the Tao path of the of Tao. Of however, before the transformation, his achievements on the Tao path were limited. After all, he was not on the perfect Tao path. All of this seemed to have no effect on him now, but when he charged into the peak of the Grand Tao one day, he would notice that a trace of imperceptible flaw left behind at the beginning of his cultivation would have an immeasurable effect. Now, Lin soon decided to rebuild his Tao path with the help of this opportunity, which meant that he was repairing the defects and further perfecting his Tao. Qi guiding. The first step of Tao path, the first level of martial realm, was to use Qi as the guide to circulate the spiritual energy through the meridians and acupoints, so as to achieve the purpose of washing away the mortal impurities. Lin soon meditated again. He moved his Qi at will and observed the subtleties. In a trance, the sound of Tao in his ears changed, as if it was explaining the meaning of Qi guiding. This made Lin soon feel a sense of novelty and joy when he first set foot on the Tao path. He often felt enlightened. Inner strength, swallowing and spitting spiritual energy, refining the internal organs and strengthening the sense of Qi. Swallowing Qi like a bull and exhaling like an arrow. Mansion opening. Opening the mansion of 5 viscera with one's own spiritual energy, tempering the 5 viscera, dredging the meridians of the 5 viscera, and expelling the old and taking in the new. Acupores clearing. Marrow washing. With the deepening of his understanding, Lin soon seemed to walk on his own Tao path. Starting from the initial Qi guiding, he stepped forward and climbed the steps of inner strength, mansion opening, acupores clearing, and so on. Each step of remodeling brought him new gains and insights. This kind of precious experience was so rare that it could only be found by chance. Without this opportunity, it was impossible to trigger this series of changes. The hall was simple and unadorned. The sound of Tao was like the sound of nature. It was like an ancient sage preaching and teaching. This was not only a rare and precious opportunity for Lin Sun, but also a precious baptism for the overmatches of other clans. The Tao voice of an ancient great figure was like a myriad of laws with a single word. How transcendent was it? Even if a great figure at the life and death realm came, he would probably be overjoyed and intoxicated by it. However, due to the difference in their realms, the profundities they comprehended were different as well. It was also destined that the overmatches like Lin Sun could only understand the essence closely related to their own realms, and could not see the higher realms such as reincarnation development realm and life and death realm. Time passed. Suddenly, a loud shout could be heard from one of the palaces. An overmatch from the Golden Phoenix clan was swept away by an invisible force, taken out of the hall, and moved to the foot of the mountain. The overmatches who had been waiting at the foot of the mountain were immediately attracted. Was this the end of the inheritance opportunity? Damn it! I don't have enough insight, and the essence I understand has reached the limit. I can only understand one secret method, and it is difficult for me to gain more, so I was sent out. The overmatch of the Golden Phoenix clan looked depressed and unwilling. As soon as this remark came out, all the people present were shocked, and most of them looked at him with envy. This opportunity was too shocking for someone who didn't have enough insight to get an inheritance of a secret method. May I ask what kind of secret method you have comprehended? Someone couldn't help but ask. The overmatch of the Golden Phoenix clan was startled and immediately became vigilant. Don't think about it. This kind of secret method can only be comprehended in the heart, and cannot be taken or taught. After all, this is the supreme inheritance of an ancient Almighty. At the end of his words, there was a trace of unconcealable joy on his face. Obviously, even though he had been eliminated, he was still extremely satisfied with the secret technique he had just obtained from comprehending it. Knowing all this, some of the overmatches who wanted to take the opportunity immediately extinguished that thought. This kind of opportunity could not be taken? What a disappointment! Su Xingfeng, Wen Xiang, and Yun Che were even more depressed. Their expressions were ugly, as if they had eaten a dead fly. The opportunity could not be taken? Didn't this mean that even if they killed Lin Xian, they would not be able to get the opportunity he got from the top of the mountain? Don't be depressed. This kid has more than these opportunities. Don't forget that he also took a saint's Taoist scripture from the sacred island of 5 elements, and he has a pagoda made from the divine iron of creation. Su Xingfeng took a deep breath with a gloomy expression. Wen Xiang and Yun Che were stunned, and then they felt much better. On the other hand, Xiao Ran remained silent. Swoosh! It wasn't long before another expert was sent out from the ancient hall on the peak of the mountain. Why? I'm only one step away from obtaining the complete Tao formula, but I've missed it just like that. This was an expert from the Herculean Ox clan. His expression was filled with unwillingness, and he roared loudly with the intention of charging up the peak of the mountain once more. Unfortunately, the 9 mountains were enveloped by restrictions, causing him to be unable to approach them at all. When they witnessed this scene, it caused the eyes of all the experts at the foot of the mountain that hadn't entered the hall to become even more red with envy. Exactly what sort of supreme fortune is hidden within the ancient hall? At the same time, they realized that the weaker one's comprehension ability was, the lesser the benefits one would obtain, and the earlier one would be eliminated. For example, perhaps the experts from the Golden Phoenix clan and Herculean Ox clan could already be considered to be top figures, but none of those that were able to enter the ancient hall were ordinary figures. The reason they'd been eliminated was obviously because their natural talent and comprehension ability were slightly inferior. Whoosh whoosh whoosh, sure enough, in the following period of time, more and more experts were sent out from the 9 ancient palaces. Some beat their chests and stamped their feet, some were depressed and vexed, some sighed repeatedly, and some were very satisfied with their gains and beamed with joy. However, no matter who it was, they all had something to gain. It was only a matter of how much they gained. During this period of time there was also a conflict. An expert who had never set foot on the peak of the mountain suddenly launched a sneak attack, wanting to kill a Xian Ao clan expert who had just obtained a fortuitous encounter. But what was shocking was that the expert of the Xian Ao clan did not even retaliate, and the person who ambushed him was killed on the spot. The one who attacked was not the cultivators present, but a restrictive power that came from the sacred mountain. It transformed into a bolt of lightning and instantly shattered the person who ambushed him. It was extremely terrifying. Good fortune is obtained by oneself. Those who do not have the chance to forcefully seize it should be killed. This was a voice condensed from a mysterious restrictive power. It was indifferent, empty, and emotionless, but it caused the expressions of everyone present to change and their hairs to stand on end. Only now did all the experts realize that this mysterious land of opportunity actually hid such an invisible and terrifying killing tribulation. At the same time, this also caused many experts to lose interest and become disheartened. The reason why they were waiting here was because they wanted to take advantage of the situation to kill and seize a fortuitous encounter. But now, after witnessing what had happened to the ambusher, who would dare to do so? At this moment, Xiao Ran, who had been silent all this time, could no longer maintain his calm. He let out a sigh, and a trace of uncontrollable unwillingness appeared on his face. He had originally wanted to wait here to see if he could seize some good fortune, but now it seemed that he had no choice but to give up, This caused Xiao Ran to feel an indescribable sense of grievance in his heart. He felt that the heavens seemed to be making things difficult for him. Could this be the will of the heavens? Chapter 6:16. As time passed, more and more experts were sent out from the top of the 9 mountains, causing a lot of commotion and discussion. Those who had not set foot on the top of the mountains were so envious that their hearts were bleeding. As for those who had returned with good fortune, they were all in high spirits. What shocked all the powerhouses was that the fortunes obtained by those powerhouses who returned from the comprehension were completely different. Some had broken through a level of cultivation. Some had grasped some kind of grand Tao. Some had transformed their souls. Some had obtained some kind of ancient secret technique that was compatible with them. Most inconceivable of it all was that even the ancient secret techniques obtained by those experts were all different, and they were all-encompassing and covered a myriad of paths. There were secret techniques of the Buddhist sect, profound techniques of the Taoist sect, and some other unique secret technique. Moreover, each secret technique was perfectly compatible with the talent and aptitude of the person who obtained it. This made the experts who had not set foot on the top of the mountains even more jealous and red-eyed. However, no one dared to take it by force. The 9 mountains were covered with terrifying restrictions. Whoever dared to take the fortune by force would be obliterated on the spot. What a great fortune! 10,000 techniques with one word. Even in the ancient times, such a great fortune is destined to be rare. Many experts sighed. They were unwilling to be unable to go up and have a look. The most tragic ones were the descendants of the Spirit Treasure Holy Land. Because of their battle with Lin Sun and because of Xiao Ran's carelessness, they had all missed this rare opportunity. Now the experts present looked at them differently. There was a trace of mockery and pity in their eyes, as if they were taking pleasure in their misfortune. This was called heaven's will being unpredictable. As for Su Xingfeng, Wen Xiang and Yun Che, their faces were already extremely gloomy and livid. Even Xiao Ran's face was clouded. They went for wool and came home shorn. This time, they had indeed suffered a great loss. Ha ha ha! This king has finally found a trace of memory and obtained the talent and secret technique inherited from my bloodline. In the future, I will set foot on the peak of the Grand Tao and look down on all living beings. Suddenly, a strange laughter rang out. The green-robed old toad was transported to the foot of the mountain. He was immensely proud and radiant with unspeakable self-satisfaction. But in the next moment, his entire body stiffened as he felt strands of icy cold killing intent envelop him, causing his hairs to stand on end. Turning his head, he saw Su Xingfeng and the others with gloomy expressions. Their eyes were filled with dense killing intent as they stared at him. Motherf ******. Why am I so unlucky? Startled, Old Toad jumped 3 feet into the air and hurriedly tried to flee. The pride and excitement in its heart vanished without a trace. How could he have imagined that he would encounter so many enemies who were eyeing him covetously right after he obtained the good fortune? But very quickly, he realized that even though Su Xingfeng and the others all had dead expressions on their faces and were full of killing intent, they did not make a move from beginning to end. Old Toad's heart skipped a beat and its eyes darted around as it realized that the situation seemed a little fishy. Cut the crap. I'll give you a chance to live. Hand over all your treasures and I'll spare your life. Wen Xiang berated. Why? Old Toad cast him a sidelong glance. What's wrong? We're willing to let you go, but you want to die instead? Wen Xiang's face darkened. Next to him, Su Xingfeng and Yun Che's killing intent grew stronger and stronger. They looked at Old Toad as if they were staring at a dead man. This made Old Toad's expression a little unsightly, and he felt uneasy. He really wasn't their match by himself. But what made him suspicious was that even though the other side was full of killing intent and aggressive, they did not make a move. This seemed a little strange. Ha ha ha, look, the successors of the Spirit Treasure Holy Land are fighting again. Those guys are jealous and want to force that green-robed youth to hand over his treasures." Mocking laughter rang out in the distance. Immediately, there was a roar of laughter with mocking expressions. Su Xingfeng and the others' expressions were extremely unsightly. They gritted their teeth so hatefully that they almost broke. Bang! Suddenly, Wen Xiang took out a dazzling silver necklace and killed a powerhouse who was laughing to himself through the air. Blood splattered everywhere. "How dare you commit murder?" Many powerhouses were shocked and angry. "Why wouldn't I dare? More than half of you didn't obtain any fortuitous encounters, yet you dare to laugh at us. Do you really think we can't do anything to you?" Wen Xiang said coldly. As soon as these words came out, many powerhouses from various clans were silent as cicadas in winter. Their expressions changed slightly. Only then did they realize that the restriction that covered this place only protected those who obtained the fortuitous encounters from being harmed. In other words, those powerhouses who didn't obtain the fortuitous encounters would also be in danger of losing their lives once a conflict broke out. Seeing that the powerhouses who were jeering were intimidated, Wen Xiang, Su Xingfeng, and the others' expressions became much better. "Green-robed little brother, don't be afraid. They don't dare to kill you." Suddenly, someone transmitted his voice to Old Toad and told him the reason. Obviously, this kind of warning couldn't be considered good intentions. They were deliberately provoking Old Toad and Su Xingfeng to fight among themselves. Old Toad's lips couldn't help but twitch fiercely when he learned all this. These guys actually dared to put on airs and scare him. Old Toad simply couldn't tolerate it. "Little brat, did you just say you wanted this king's treasures?" Old Toad said with a smile. Wen Xiang immediately became vigilant, but he said, "This is to atone for your sins. If you do this, we can consider giving you a way out." "A way out?" Old Toad suddenly let out an evil laugh. It abruptly leapt up and slapped Wen Xiang. "Go F***K yourself. This king must slap you to death today, you detestable little brat. You dare!" Wen Xiang was furious. He was so angry that his eyes almost popped out of their sockets. He wasn't afraid of Old Toad in the slightest and was even confident that he could easily kill it. But in the end, he dodged, feeling extremely aggrieved. There was nothing he could do. He was extremely wary of the restriction here, and was afraid that he would encounter misfortune when he fought with Old Toad. Seeing this, Old Toad's courage instantly increased. The last shred of hesitation in its heart was swept away. Laughing strangely, it chased after Wen Xiang without the slightest trace of politeness. "There's nothing in this world that this king doesn't dare to do. Hurry up and get over here, let this king smack your little butt into mush. You dare to humiliate me. Ha ha ha, I'm humiliating you, so what? If you have the guts, do it. Just you wait. When we get out, I'll definitely pull out your tendons, skin you alive, and grind your bones to dust. Yo, little brat, you still dare to threaten this king? I'll beat you to death." Chaos ensued. Old Toad chased after Wen Xiang as if it was risking its life. Using its techniques, it slashed out one divine rainbow after another with a murderous aura. Wen Xiang dodged again and again, not daring to fight back. He was so angry that his face turned red and purple as he yelled angrily. He was truly furious, but there was nothing he could do. Old Toad became even more complacent and fearless. Its wild laughter resounded through the world, and it was incomparably carefree. In the distance, the experts of the various races were flabbergasted and roared with laughter. The mocking laughter provoked Wen Xiang so much that he was about to explode, and he almost coughed up blood. As for Su Xingfeng and the others, they also lost face. This farce made them feel embarrassed. When had the descendants of the numinous treasure Holy Land been reduced to such a state? Aren't you just relying on the protection of the restriction? Don't you think it's shameless? Yun Che berated angrily. Damn it, you brat, you dare to call this king shameless? Old Toad was furious. It gave up on Wen Xiang and chased after Yun Che. At the peak of the mountain earlier, it was already covered in blood and in a miserable and sorry state. How could it miss such an opportunity now? Thus, Yunche had no choice but to cover his head and flee like a rat as he dodged repeatedly. In the end, Old Toad still hadn't vented its hatred, so it chased after Su Xingfeng again, causing the scene to instantly fall into chaos. This caused the experts of the various races to be even more overjoyed. They laughed to the point they rocked back and forth, and tears almost fell from their eyes. It was the first time they'd noticed that the green-robed youth was actually so audacious, and he was even more daring than the young devil god to cause trouble. Unknowingly, Zhao Jingxian had arrived at the foot of the mountain, and when she saw this scene, a strange expression couldn't help but appear on her clear and beautiful face. This old toad is too willful. However, when she saw Su Xingfeng, Wen Xiang, and Yun Che's sorry and aggrieved appearances, Zhao Jingxian couldn't help but be amused, and a wisp of a smile suffused the corners of her lustrous and plump lips. Junior sister Zhao, ask him to stop. In the distance, Xiao Ran's expression was cold and indifferent, and there was a wisp of unprecedented rage between his brows. You ought to be clearly aware that if this goes on, he won't be able to harm anyone at all, and he'll only harm the honor of our spirit treasure sacred land. The smile on the corners of Zhao Jingshuan's mouth instantly froze, and a wisp of coldness suffused her clear eyes. She recalled the scene of Xiao Ran launching a sneak attack on her after entering the hall. I feel that this is very interesting. Zhao Jingshuan's expression was indifferent as her clear eyes locked onto Xiao Ran, and she said, It's even to the extent that I want to spar with senior brother right now. Xiao Ran's expression changed slightly, and then he took a deep breath and said, Junior sister Zhao, I know you hate me, but everyone's fighting for the sake of fortune. I feel that I didn't really harm you in the hall. Could it be that you don't understand? You want me to understand? A wisp of faint ridicule suffused the corners of Zhao Jingshuan's mouth. All right, then let me launch a sneak attack on you as well, how about it? Xiao Ran finally realized the seriousness of the problem. In the past, Zhao Jingxian had always respected and admired him, but now she had changed and viewed him as an enemy. This made Xiao Ran frown a little. Unexpectedly, Zhao Jingxian spoke at that moment to stop Old Toad. Old Toad, stop. If you continue to make trouble, you won't be able to kill them. Instead, others will laugh at you. Old Toad chuckled, that's true. This made Xiao Ran heave a sigh of relief, but Su Xingfeng, Wen Xiang, and Yun Che couldn't bring themselves to be happy. In front of so many people, they had been chased by Old Toad, and couldn't even fight back. That feeling of sullenness and humiliation was driving them crazy, so how could they possibly have any good expressions? You're right. In the end, I'm the successor of the Spirit Treasure Holy Land, and I have to protect the sect's reputation, but that doesn't include you guys. Zhao Jingxian looked at Xiao Ran with a cold expression. I will remember today's events well, and in the future, I will challenge you one by one. Her voice was resolute. She recalled how Su Xingfeng and the others had suddenly launched a sneak attack on Lin Sun, and recalled how she had been sneak attacked. Chapter 6:17. The fact that Old Toad no longer pursued Zhao Jingxian disappointed the spectators. Zhao Jingshuan's resolute attitude also caused the expressions of Xiao Ran and the others to change. In the end, the farce came to an end. But Zhao Jingxian, Xiao Ran, and the others all knew that the relationship between them had been severed. As time passed, the majority of the cultivators who had entered the 9 ancient palaces had been sent out one after another. Niu Tunshan is the only one left in the first hall. Meng Lianqing is the only one left in the third hall. Graceful Peacock is the only one left in the fourth hall. The cultivators were all waiting. They all knew that the longer they could last in the ancient palaces, the greater the fortune they would obtain. When they learned that peerless figures like Niu Tunshan, Meng Lianqing, and Graceful Peacock were still persevering, they couldn't help but exclaim. There were chosen in every clan, but the most outstanding ones among them were undoubtedly Niu Tunshan, Meng Lianqing, and the others. They had already proven their strength with their ironclad achievements. Now that they could comprehend for so long in the ancient palaces, it was obvious how amazing their talent and foundation were. Xianluozi is the only one left in the 7th hall. Only the young demon god of the human race is left in the 9th hall. What? The young demon god has also been comprehending and hasn't been sent out? Although this guy is ferocious, I have to admit that only someone like him might be able to compete with Niu Tunshan and Meng Lianqing. When they learned that Lin Sun was still comprehending and hadn't been eliminated, the expressions of the cultivators became complicated. There was hatred and enmity, as well as admiration. Only Su Xingfeng and the others were gloomy and gritted their teeth. They really hadn't expected Lin Sun to be able to last until now. This was beyond their expectations and made them even more fearful. The fact that Lin Sun could last until now undoubtedly proved that he possessed unimaginable talent and comprehension. If such a ferocious guy obtained some powerful inheritance, wouldn't he become even more terrifying in the future? This boy must not be allowed to live. Su Xingfeng and the others secretly made up their minds. The only thing they could rely on now was to get even with Elder Gao Yang when they left. Although it was a little immoral to do so, they would do anything as long as they could kill Lin Sun and seize his treasures. Apart from the 5 of them, the ancient palaces on the other 4 mountains are all empty. Doesn't this mean that no one can completely inherit the inheritance within the 4 ancient palaces? What a pity! Yeah, what a pity! Waves of sighs resounded in the surroundings. All the experts found that, except for the ancient palace occupied by Lin Sun, Niu Tunshan and the other 4, there were no experts in the other 4 palaces. This undoubtedly meant that no one would be able to comprehend the inheritances within those 4 palaces, and they couldn't help but sigh with regret. I really can't accept this, Xiao Ran muttered inwardly. He was unable to calm his emotions today. There were too many fluctuations. Even if he wanted to suppress them, it was difficult for him to do so. And all of this was because he had left the top of the mountain in advance. Thinking of this, Xiao Ran became even more depressed. Back then, no one had forced him to leave, but he had left of his own accord. Who would have thought that because of this, he would miss a great opportunity? This was like entering a treasure mountain only to return empty-handed. No one would be able to remain calm if they were in his place. In Xiao Ran's view, if he had still been in that ancient palace, he would definitely not be any worse than Lin Sun, Niu Tunshan or Meng Lianqing. Unfortunately, this was fate. One wrong step would lead to a completely different outcome. Miss Zhao, what did you comprehend? Old Toad asked telepathically. He was very happy. Although he hadn't been able to persevere to the end, he had unexpectedly obtained some vague memories from the past during his comprehension just now. The rarest thing was that he had also mastered a secret talent that flowed through his bloodline, a cultivation secret that belonged to the 3-legged golden toad lineage. For Old Toad, this was undoubtedly equivalent to finding his true path. As long as he cultivated diligently in the future, he wouldn't have to worry about not being able to ascend the great path. I obtained an ancient secret method called the art of 4 symbols constellations. Zhao Jingshuan's words were concise, but there was also a hint of joy in her voice. It was obvious that this inheritance was a rare surprise for her. In ancient times, the gods divided the heavens and the realms into 28 constellations, divided into 4 symbols and 7 mansions. They were named after the ancient divine beasts Vermilion Bird, Azure Dragon, White Tiger and Black Tortoise. They seized the power of heaven above and suppressed the 4 poles below. Since this technique dares to be named after the art of 4 symbols constellations, it's definitely an extraordinary inheritance. Old Toad was instantly envious and covetous. Just from the name alone, he knew that this secret method was absolutely extraordinary. You've also gained a lot this time. Zhao Jingxian glanced at him. Old Toad immediately became proud and said with a smile, "Of course, I'm definitely not worse than you. How is it compared to Lin Sun?" Zhao Jingxian blinked. Old Toad was immediately discouraged and said unhappily, "Can you let this king be happy for a while? Why do you always like to hit others like that, boy? This is a bad habit and you have to change it." Speaking of this, he couldn't help touching his chin, looked up at the top of the mountain, and murmured, "Speaking of which, I'm really curious about what kind of fortune this guy will obtain in the end." Zhao Jingxian also felt the same, and her clear eyes looked at the top of the mountain. Not only the two of them, but also the focus of all the people present at this moment fell on Lin Sun, Niu Tunxin, Meng Lianqing, Kong Xiu and Xian Luozi. Because until now, only the 5 of them had not been sent back, but had been comprehending, which was too shocking. Did this mean that the fortune they were about to obtain was destined to be extraordinary? In the ancient palace, behind Lin Sun's head, a wheel of light flowed, reflecting the Tao platform of heaven. It was surrounded by treasure light and divine clouds, and the aura of Tao was simple and leisurely. After a long time, Lin Sun suddenly opened his eyes. Until now, he had completely reconstructed his Tao, and his heart was open and clear. He could fully feel that his Tao had changed again. When he was promoted to the Tao Insight realm, it was only the extreme transformation of this realm that allowed him to set foot on the most powerful Tao since ancient times. Now, after listening to the essence of Tao, he walked on the road of Tao again, reconstructed his realm, and made all the realms he had possessed in the past undergo a new transformation. This sort of transformation was the extreme change in a path of cultivation since he'd started cultivating until now. It was like a reincarnation, and it allowed the path Lin Sun grasped to be flawless and perfect to the extreme. No wonder everyone said that the Tao in the mortal world was incomplete. If it weren't for the fortune I got today, which made me fill the gap, I'm afraid I couldn't make such an extreme transformation in my Tao. Lin Sun was enlightened in his heart. In the past, although he knew that the Tao in the mortal world was incomplete, he didn't know where it was. Now, after a profound comprehension of the Tao, he finally saw where the incomplete Tao was. He also took this opportunity to perfect himself in one fell swoop, and really transformed the Tao to the extreme. At this moment, his whole body was ethereal, and his breath was mellow and endless. Every move of his carried an invisible rhythm, which was in harmony with the world, transcendent and otherworldly. Although his cultivation was still at the mastery of the Tao Insight realm, Lin Sun felt that his control of power and understanding of Tao had undergone a completely different transformation. He suddenly longed for a battle and wanted to prove himself. This was a kind of supreme demeanor, disdainful confidence, and a taste of competing with the Tao. The comprehension was over, but Lin soon noticed that the stone tripod in the center of the hall was emitting a rain of Tao light at this moment, which gushed out and covered his whole body. The next moment, he disappeared in the hall. In the first palace, Niu Tunxin, who was sitting cross-legged, suddenly stood up. His imposing figure was like a majestic mountain that surged with a jet-black light that was terrifying like tidewater. The space between his brows was filled with an arrogant and domineering aura, and his eyes emitted a piercing cold light, causing him to reveal an arrogant expression of supremacy. Roar! He looked up to the sky and let out a long roar. His long hair danced in the wind, and he looked like a great demon god. There was no doubt that after this comprehension, Niu Tunxin had become even stronger. After this enlightenment, I will step into the reincarnation development realm within 3 years and compete for a higher Tao. In the third palace, Meng Lianqing's slender figure floated up. Her whole body was shining with golden light, as if gold was flowing, dazzling. Vaguely, one could see the shadow of a golden phoenix flying in the dark behind her, as if it wanted to compete with the sky. This Tao is mysterious, and I have benefited a lot. In the fourth palace, Kong Xiu, the son of the Cloud Monkey clan, stood up. His eyes were intertwined with lightning, extremely frightening. His smooth black hair was coiled with strands of silver arcs of lightning that flickered ceaselessly, and it caused him to seem like a child of God that was bathed in lightning and was born from it. This enlightenment is really incredible. In the seventh ancient palace, Xianluozi, the son of the Xian Ao clan, stood up and fell into deep thought. He had a head of long blue hair, a slender and dignified figure, and his entire body flowed with a dreamlike blue mist. However, his temperament was extremely sharp, like a peerless spear that wanted to pierce through the sky. At this moment, Lin Sun, Niu Tunshan, Meng Lianqing, Kong Xiu, and Xianluozi woke up at almost the same time. The voice that explained the Tao had already disappeared, and the unique inheritance aura that made them feel like they were dream-traversing the ancient times had also disappeared without a trace. Therefore, they all woke up from their enlightenment. Then, just like Lin Sun, they all felt the stone cauldrons in the palace rumble and spray out a rain of Tao light, covering their bodies. Finally, they all disappeared from their respective palaces. Boom. Chapter 6:18. The previous chapter had the wrong number of chapters and had been corrected. The 9 mountains rumbled and attracted everyone's attention. Look, the 9 stone cauldrons have appeared at the same time. An expert exclaimed. At the peak of the 9 mountains, above every ancient palace, ancient stone cauldrons appeared. They stood in the void and spewed out a rain of light. Is this what's going to happen? Everyone was shocked and their eyes were glued to the scene. They realized what this shocking change meant. As expected, what happened next stunned the experts of the various clans. Their eyes widened and their faces were filled with disbelief. The 9 ancient stone cauldrons formed a 9 palaces formation and constructed a grand and ancient dojo in the void. The grounds were filled with an ancient aura, and it seemed as if it had existed since the ancient times until now. Now that it had appeared in the world, an ancient aura assaulted the face. The most eye-catching thing was that in the center of the dojo, there was a cattail hassock. On it was a jade archive that flowed with golden Tao light. The aura of the jade archive was too sacred. The golden Tao light it emitted dyed the cattail hassock, the dojo, and even the void golden. It was brilliant and its aura was immortal. A jade archive and golden letter. When they saw this, the experts at the foot of the mountain felt their hearts beat violently. They breathed heavily and their eyes were filled with fascination and shock. The Tao light emitted by a jade archive and golden letter illuminated the mountains and rivers. The sacred aura even made the cultivators feel like they were about to sink into it. Without a doubt, this jade archive and golden letter must be the most mysterious, supreme, and precious great creation in this place. This was shocking and unbelievable. It should be noted that just before this, the cultivators who had set foot on the peak of the 9 mountains had more or less obtained a great creation. Who could have imagined that just when they thought everything was about to end, an even greater creation would appear in the world? Damn it! That jade archive and golden letter is so sacred. It must be the supreme inheritance of the divine path. Damn it, we have no fate with it. Why is it like this? Many experts beat their chests and stamped their feet in frustration. Even the experts who had obtained fortuitous encounters in the ancient palace were extremely unwilling at this moment. Their hearts were filled with bitterness. They were now blocked by the power of the restrictive formation at the foot of the mountain. They could only watch as this unprecedented fortuitous opportunity appeared. They had no chance to fight for it. That feeling was too torturous. On the other hand, to Su Xingfeng and the others, the scene before their eyes was simply like a club that struck them to the point their minds went blank, and they were aggrieved to the point of almost spitting blood. If they had known that there was such a rare opportunity as the Jade Archive and Golden Book on the top of the mountain, how could they have chosen to deal with Lin Sun? Unfortunately, there was no medicine for regret in this world. At this moment, they could only watch with bloodshot eyes. They had no chance to fight for it, and they almost suffered internal injuries from holding back. As for Xiao Ran, he grew even more silent and had a blank expression on his face. His fists were clenched tightly to the point his fingertips sank deeply into his palms, and the veins on the back of his hands were bulging. Obviously, he was forcefully controlling the surging fluctuations in his heart and suppressing the grievance, unwillingness, frustration, and vexation. "Look, that kid has appeared." In the distance, the old toad's eyes lit up with excitement. It saw many figures appear in the Taoist field high up in the void, and Lin Sun was among them. "Looks like they've persisted until the end, and it's equivalent to obtaining some sort of acknowledgement. Thus, they're able to step foot into the dojo and fight for that jade archive and golden book." Zhao Jingxian murmured softly, and her clear face lit up. She was increasingly amazed by Lin Sun's performance. "It's the holy son of our tribe, Niu Tunshin. Ha ha ha. This opportunity is destined to belong to our Herculean Ox tribe." Cheers rang out in the field from the experts of the Herculean Ox tribe. All of them were extremely excited. They saw Niu Tunshin's majestic figure appear in the Taoist field, his divine power disdainful. "Our holy girl, Meng Lianqing, is also here. It's still uncertain who will obtain this opportunity. Humph! Don't you dare ignore our Black Turtle tribe. Haha, the holy son of our Cloud Monkey tribe naturally can't miss this great opportunity." All of a sudden, the experts of the Golden Phoenix tribe, the Black Turtle tribe, and the Cloud Monkey tribe also spoke. They glared at each other and were at daggers drawn. Seeing this, the experts of the other clans felt sour, bitter, and helpless. At the top of the mountain, in the ancient Taoist field built in the void, a total of 5 figures appeared. They were Lin Sun, Niu Tunshin, Meng Lianqing, Xian Luozi, and Kong Xiu. The 5 of them had obviously obtained the recognition from the Enlightenment just now, thus gaining the right to enter the ancient Taoist field. In other words, the Jade Archive and Golden Letter were destined to be obtained by one of the 5 of them. As for the others, they did not even have the right to fight for it. They could only watch helplessly. One could imagine how infuriating this feeling was. Hee, don't forget that the young demon god of the human clan is still in the Taoist field. Whether it's Niu Tunshin of your Herculean Ox tribe, Meng Lianqing of the Golden Phoenix tribe, Kong Xiu of the Cloud Monkey tribe, or Xian Luozi of the Black Turtle tribe, who wants to obtain the Jade Archive and Golden Letter. Let's talk about it after we get past the young demon god first. Some experts of the other clans could not stand it anymore and sneered. As soon as these words were spoken, it instantly caused an uproar in the surroundings. Some people thought that the young demon god of the human clan was still there. His battle record was extremely fierce, and whoever dared to ignore him was destined to be unlucky. This caused the Herculean Ox tribe, Golden Phoenix tribe, Cloud Monkey tribe, and Black Turtle tribe to be displeased. Who does that young demon god think he is? Is he worthy of being mentioned in the same breath as our holy son, Niu Tunshin? Humph! What young demon god? He only has an undeserved reputation. That's because he hasn't met the holy lady of the Golden Phoenix tribe. Otherwise, he would have been killed long ago. How could he have survived until now? Let's wait and see. If that young demon god dares to fight with the holy son of the Cloud Monkey tribe, he will definitely die a horrible death. Ever since the holy son of the Black Turtle tribe made his debut, he has never met an opponent who can withstand a single blow from him. Now that you are using a young demon god to provoke us, this is an insult to our holy son. You must apologize immediately. The quarrel was inseparable. The situation doesn't look good. What do you think are Lin Sun's chances of winning this time? Zhao Jingxian frowned as a hint of worry flashed across her clear eyes. Old Toad stroked his chin with a solemn expression. As long as they don't join forces, no one should be able to hurt that kid. Nonsense. Zhao Jingxian glared at him angrily. She also knew that she could not see anything wrong at the moment, so she could not make any valuable judgments. However, the only thing she was sure of was that once this battle for the opportunity broke out, it was destined to be extremely dangerous and tragic. As for who would get the Jade Archive and Golden Book in the end, no one could give an answer at the moment. After all, the 5 powerhouses who had stepped into the ancient Taoist field could all be said to be peerless figures in their realm. They were extremely talented, had brilliant achievements, and were famous. Therefore, no one could predict who would win and who would lose when they fought. While the powerhouses at the foot of the mountain were in an uproar, Lin Sun, Niu Tunchen, Meng Lianqing, Kong Xiu, and Xian Luozi were also facing each other in the ancient Taoist field that had appeared in the void at the peak of the mountain. The Taoist field was ancient and ancient. It was dyed gold, glorious and solemn. Coincidentally, their gazes locked onto the futon at the center of the Taoist field. There was a jade archive and golden book there, overflowing with golden Tao light. It was incomparably sacred. This tempted them, and a burning light flashed in their eyes. They realized that this was destined to be a great opportunity that they had to obtain. However, they were also extremely cautious and vigilant. They knew that in order to seize this opportunity, they had to defeat their opponents first. There is only one scripture. Among the 4 of us, the most powerful one will get this opportunity. Niu Tunchen opened his mouth. His voice was like muffled thunder, and his body was shrouded in dark light. He suddenly turned his head and stared at Lin Sun. As for you, you are just a human teenager. You are not qualified to compete. If you want to live, stay there and watch. His voice was sonorous and full of killing intent. In one sentence, he directly kicked Lin Sun out, thinking that he was not qualified to compete with them. What do you think? Niu Tunchen didn't ask whether Lin Sun was willing at all. After saying this, he looked at the other 3. Lin Sun couldn't help but narrow his eyes at his arrogant and dismissive attitude. Well, the 4 of us will compete by our own ability. Xian Luozi put his hands behind his back, his long blue hair fluttering in the wind. His eyes were as sharp as a peerless blade. It seems that I have no choice but to agree. On the other side, Xiu Kung shrugged her shoulders. Her eyes were full of thunder and lightning, which was extremely frightening. Do you really think that this friend will cooperate and give up on his own initiative? Meng Lianqing, the saintess of the Golden Phoenix clan, suddenly opened her mouth and looked at Lin Sun. If he doesn't cooperate, we will kill him. Niu Tunchen looked disdainful and didn't take it seriously. In my opinion, it is better to kill this friend first, and then we will compete. What do you think? Hearing this, Meng Lianqing smiled and said lightly. Her body was full of dazzling golden light, and her aura was very strong. As soon as this proposal came out, Niu Tunchen, Xiu Kung, and Xian Luozi were all moved. They looked at Lin Sun coldly. At this moment, Lin Sun suddenly moved. He walked directly to the center of the Taoist field. I told you to stay here, but you still dare to move. In this case, I will send you to hell now. Niu Tunchen shouted. His long hair was loose, and his eyes were cold and ruthless. His figure flashed and rushed towards Lin Sun. Boom! He brandished a dazzling golden trident with great force that obliterated space with terrifying strength. Swish! Lin Sun's figure disappeared, and the next moment he appeared on the other side of the Taoist field. He looked at Niu Tunchen with deep and cold eyes and said, "Stupid Niu, don't make me kill you." This was not the time to be modest. It was impossible to keep a low profile. Are you talking to me? Niu Tunchen was stunned. It was the first time for him to see a human dare to talk to him like this, treating him like an animal waiting to be slaughtered. He almost couldn't believe his ears. You are nothing. Lin Sun turned around and rushed to the futon in the center of the Taoist field again. Chapter 619. Who do you think you are? Niu Tunchen's face turned green when he heard such a rude reprimand. He had never been humiliated like this since he started cultivating. The most outrageous thing was that Lin Sun did not look at him from beginning to end. After saying this, he rushed directly to the futon in the center of the Taoist field. Obviously, this human teenager was not afraid of his threat at all. "I'll kill you first!" Niu Tunshan roared and attacked in anger. Boom! His entire body flowed with black light, and his body that was tall like a mountain was filled with terrifying fluctuations. This was the aura of an expert that stood at the peak, and it was overbearing, terrifying, and could swallow the world. Many powerhouses at the foot of the mountain were shocked. Although they had already seen Niu Tunshan's terror, they still felt uneasy and restless when they saw it again. "This young bull demon king is too terrifying and powerful," some powerhouses whispered. Even though they were far away, they were still shocked. Swish! The dark light flashed and moved so fast that it came to Lin Sun's side in the blink of an eye. A dazzling golden trident slashed down. "Die!" Niu Tunshan roared in an overbearing manner. The trident crushed the void, disdainful and reckless. Boom! The void exploded and the airflow surged, but Lin Sun's figure was nowhere to be seen. He dodged it. Many powerhouses were in an uproar. Lin Sun's figure was out of this world. He stood in the distance, overflowing with Tao runes, smooth and outstanding. He was not injured in the slightest. Even Meng Lianqing, Kongxiu and Xian Luozi could not help but be surprised at this moment. Only now did they realize that this young demon god was worthy of his reputation. "Stupid bull, how dare you be so arrogant with such little ability?" Lin Sun chuckled, but his black eyes were full of coldness. Stupid bull. Many powerhouses were dizzy. This young demon god was too arrogant. He was the saint of the Herculean bull demon tribe, known as the young bull demon king. But in his mouth, he was reprimanded like an animal. "Saint, you must kill him." The powerhouses of the Herculean bull demon tribe were all angry. Their eyes were red and they shouted angrily. Boom! In the Taoist field, Niu Devouring Heaven's beard flared up in anger. He held a trident in his hand and pointed it at Lin Sun from afar. The golden blade of the trident emitted a dazzling light, cold and gloomy. "Today, I must kill you as a warning to others. You talk too much. Wash your neck and I'll slaughter you." Lin Sun stood in the distance with a calm expression. His eyes were deep, and his whole body was flowing with a faint, clear divine brilliance, which made him extraordinary. Tit for tat, the two young experts were now opponents. One was the saint of the Herculean bull demon race. He was known to suppress his peers to the point where they couldn't even lift their heads. He was domineering and flamboyant. One was a young human fiend celestial who had single-handedly swept through the various races, carving out an unparalleled bloody path. In an instant, everyone's eyes were focused on them. No one expected that Lin Sun and Niu Tunshan would have a conflict before they could get the Jade Archive and Golden Book. The atmosphere in the dojo was tense and oppressive. Such a confrontation was absolutely world-shocking, and it affected the minds of everyone present. It's rare to see someone as bold as you in the human tribe. However, those who dared to talk to me like this are all dead. Niu Tunshan's expression was cold, and his long hair was loose. At this moment, there was no trace of anger on his face, only coldness and indifference. But the more he was like this, the more terrifying his momentum became. He wasn't conceited, but he had already honed an invincible spirit. Speaking of which, I've never eaten the meat of the Herculean bull demon before. Maybe I can taste it myself after I slaughter you this time, Lin Sun said casually. All the experts were stunned. This young fiend celestial was too ferocious. How could he regard the young bull demon as food? Did he really not want to live? Otherwise, how could he say such crazy words? Only Old Toad laughed, thinking that Lin Sun was somewhat like him. He also regarded the world's strong cultivators as nothing and was full of spirit. Boom! The void trembled violently. Niu Tunshan's face was extremely cold. He shook his trident, and without any hesitation, He slashed forward like a golden lightning, illuminating the world. Lin Sun's black hair fluttered, and his black eyes were clear. At this moment, he was incomparably ethereal. His body and Tao were in harmony, and his chi was pushed to the peak. Boom! He punched with his bare hand. His fist was crystal clear, overflowing with Tao, and collided head-on with his opponent. In the Taoist field, it was as if a thunderbolt had exploded, shaking the void into disorder. Divine light spread, and the entire Taoist field buzzed. The two were engaged in a fierce battle. Kill that human bastard! The strong cultivators of the Herculean bull demon were cheering, their voices shaking the sky. The experts of the other clans were also nervously watching this pinnacle battle. This man has killed countless strong cultivators of our clans. Now that he has encountered Nyo Tunshin, no matter how fierce he is destined to suffer. Many experts gritted their teeth. These were the strong cultivators of the clans that Lin Sun had hunted down before, such as the Li Mu clan, the Devil Elephant clan, the Jade Lin clan, and so on. They naturally wanted Lin Sun to be killed. Humph, although Nyo Tunshin is strong, that young devil god is not weak either. Don't forget, more than 1 or 2 saints have died in his hands. There were also strong cultivators who believed that Lin Sun was not easy to deal with, and that it would not be easy for Nyo Tunshin to kill him. Boom! In the void Taoist field, Lin Sun and Nyo Tunshin were fighting fiercely. Both of them were peerless figures, and now that they were engaged in a fierce battle, the weather changed, and the sun and moon lost their light. The scene was extremely terrifying. This caused a burst of exclamations in the field from time to time. Some sighed with emotion at Nyo Tunshin's terror, and some were surprised by Lin Sun's tyrannical strength. Only Su Xingfeng and the others looked the ugliest. The more dazzling Lin Sun's performance was, the angrier and more fearful they were. If possible, they would rather Lin Sun die in the hands of Nyo Tunshin. At the beginning of the battle, Meng Lianqing, Kong Xiu, and Xian Luozi all retreated, leaving enough space for them to fight. At this moment, Meng Lianqing was surrounded by dense golden light. Her skin was whiter than snow, and her bearing was outstanding. Her eyes were flowing with divine light as she stared at the battle, and her expression was full of thought. On the other side, Kong Xiu's body was flowing with lightning. He was tall and slender, as if he was bathed in lightning. It was a sight to behold. At the same time, Xian Luozi stood silently, his long blue hair fluttering in the wind. He held a magnificent blue spear in his hand, and his whole body was overflowing with undisguised sharpness. They were staring at each other like tigers watching their prey, ready to fight for the Jade Archive and Golden Book on the futon at the center at any time. Swish! Finally, Xian Luozi could not bear it any longer. His figure flashed, and he was the first to make a move. He was like a blue flowing light, unbelievably fast. It was a golden opportunity to snatch the Jade Archive and Golden Book while the young devil god and Nyo Tunshin were fighting. But to Xian Luozi's surprise, almost at the same time, Meng Lianqing's dress fluttered in the wind. "Do it!" Meng Lianqing shouted. She was not going to fight for the Jade Archive and Golden Book, but to stop Xian Luozi. Whoosh! A dazzling golden rainbow, like divine swords, blotted out the sky and covered Xian Luozi. Have they joined forces? Xian Luozi's heart sank. Sure enough, on the other side, graceful Kong had also made her move. Damn it! Xian Luozi did not dare to hesitate, and he attacked with his blue spear. He realized that Meng Lianqing and graceful Kong must have secretly formed an alliance to kill him first. Boom! This attack exploded with a blinding light, like a thunderclap from the 9 heavens, and it shook the entire dojo. But to Xian Luozi's surprise, although graceful Kong had attacked, she did not attack him. Instead, she flew toward the center of the dojo while he was fighting Meng Lianqing. What was going on? Xian Luozi's eyes narrowed. Graceful Kong, how dare you lie to me? Meng Lianqing shouted angrily, and golden light danced around her body. She had abandoned Xianluozi, and she flew across the sky toward graceful Kong. This time, Xianluozi finally understood. Obviously, graceful Kong had secretly formed an alliance with Meng Lianqing to deal with him. However, graceful Kong's true objective was to gain Meng Lianqing's trust and use her to keep him busy. In this way, Niu Tunshan and the young devil god would be keeping each other busy, while Meng Lianqing and him would be keeping each other busy. Under such circumstances, graceful Kong would be able to seize this opportunity to seize the Jade Archive and Golden Scroll by himself. How dare you, graceful Kong? These thoughts flashed through his heart, and then Xianluozi's face sank while killing intent appeared in his eyes. He didn't hesitate at all to attack graceful Kong with the dark blue spear in his hand. Unfortunately, both Meng Lianqing and Xianluozi were too slow, and graceful Kong had already arrived at the center of the dojo by the time they recovered from their shock. He stretched out his hand to grab the Jade Archive and Golden Book on the meditation cushion, and his expression was filled with delight that was impossible to conceal. This time, it was equivalent to allowing him to obtain a world-shocking fortune without the slightest effort. Bang! But in the next moment, his expression changed abruptly. At the instant his finger touched it, the Jade Archive and Golden Scroll seemed like an illusion, and it transformed into a rain of light that vanished. Graceful Kong's heart twitched fiercely, and he almost went mad. What's going on? Why did fortune vanish? Bang! But in next to no time, he didn't have the time to think, because Meng Lianqing and Xianluozi had already arrived. Both of them were extremely furious, and their attacks were extremely terrifying. Even graceful Kong didn't dare go head-on against them, and he had no choice but to dodge. After that, he shouted loudly, "Calm your anger. This is a trap. The so-called fortune doesn't exist at all. The Jade Archive and Golden Scroll are just an illusion. We've been deceived." As soon as these words were spoken, Meng Lianqing and Xianluozi's expressions changed slightly. Sure enough, they noticed that the Jade Archive and Golden Scroll on the meditation cushion at the center hadn't been taken away. Both of them instantly hesitated. "Let me try." Meng Lianqing's figure suddenly flashed, and she flicked her sleeve to retrieve the Jade Archive and Golden Scroll. At practically the exact same moment, Xianluozi attacked as well. However, a scene that disappointed them appeared. The Jade Archive and Golden Scroll really did as graceful Kong said, and it transformed into a rain of golden light that vanished like an illusion. Suddenly, their expressions were uncertain, and their hearts were replaced by indescribable disappointment and unwillingness. Could it be that the greatest fortune didn't exist at all, but was a trap? How could it be? At this moment, Niu Tunshan, who was fighting fiercely with Lin Sun in the distance, also let out a deafening roar. Obviously, although he was fighting with Lin Sun, he had been paying attention to all this and found that something was wrong. Only Lin Sun's lips twitched imperceptibly. He thought of the mysterious 33 palaces and the platform full of treasures at the end of the palaces. Chapter 620. Everyone was dumbfounded. Just the divine golden light emitted by the Jade Archive and Golden Book illuminated the universe. It was considered to be the greatest fortuitous encounter. Who would have thought that it was all an illusion? At the foot of the mountain, the powerhouses of all races were speechless. No one had expected this result. It happened again. Old Toad and Zhao Jingxian looked at each other helplessly. In the Taoist field, Niu Tunshan and Lin Sun stopped fighting. An amazing opportunity might disappear, so they were not in the mood to continue fighting. They were eager to find the answer. "Let me have a try." Niu Tunshan stepped forward and reached out to grab the Jade Archive and Golden Book. It suddenly turned into a rain of light and disappeared, unable to be taken away. But soon, the Jade Archive and Golden Book appeared again. The brilliant light dyed the world golden, making it extremely sacred. Everyone's expression was uncertain. How could this be? He had set up such a grand layout and even used 9 stone cauldrons to build a void dojo to reflect such a shocking opportunity. Could it be that, in the end, it was just an illusion? Strong unwillingness and disappointment surged in everyone's heart, making them so depressed that they wanted to vomit blood. Lin Sun walked towards the center of the Taoist field. This attracted the attention of Niu Tunshan and others, but no one stopped him in the end. They had all tried it, so they naturally didn't believe that Lin Sun could make any new discoveries. However, to their surprise, Lin Sun didn't make a move. Instead, he meditated for a while and sat cross-legged on the futon. Niu Tunshan and others focused their eyes and waited for Lin Sun. Although they had noticed the futon just now, their attention was completely attracted by the Jade Archive and Golden Book, so they ignored this detail. Now, seeing Lin Sun's action, they immediately became vigilant and were ready to take action. The futon was made of unknown materials. It looked a little old and exuded a trace of antiquity. However, the moment Lin Sun sat cross-legged on it, he felt an indescribable breath of Tao covering his whole body, making his mind and soul resonate. In a trance, a Jade Archive and Golden Book appeared and turned to a page. There were not words on it, but an ancient pattern. That was the ancient battlefield. An unyielding figure towered between the heavens and the earth. From the 9 hells, he fought all the way above the 9 heavens, causing corpses to cover the ground and seas of blood to surge into the sky. He bathed in blood all along the way, yet he didn't take a single step back. He alone went against the world, the heavens, and the grand Tao, and he killed to the point the world was overturned and all things were destroyed. Boom! Lin Sun felt his blood was burning, and an indescribable strong desire to fight burst out from his heart and spread all over his body. He couldn't wait to go on an expedition and fight. This was a kind of pure and passionate fighting will, a kind of indescribable power. It resonated with Lin Sun and made his blood boil. And all of this was merely an ancient battle diagram. Could it be that this is the inheritance hidden in the Jade Archive and Golden Book? Lin Sun was full of fighting spirit. He resisted the impulse to continue to study the Jade Archive and Golden Book that emerged. But right at this moment, he felt a sharp pain all over his body, and he sensed an indescribable dangerous aura. Not good. Lin Sun suddenly came to his senses. In an instant, his figure flashed away from the futon. Rumble! This area was covered by all kinds of attacks. The divine light was blazing, and the roar was like thunder. It was conceivable that if Lin Sun hadn't dodged in time, this blow alone would have been enough to kill him. It was Niu Tunshan, Meng Lianqing, Graceful Kong, and Xian Luozi who attacked Lin Sun. They had been paying attention to Lin Sun. When they sensed that Lin Sun seemed to have obtained some kind of benefit, they were immediately refreshed. They had realized that this amazing opportunity was not a real illusion, and it was very likely to have something to do with the futon. When they made this judgment, they did not hesitate to attack, leaving no chance for Lin Sun to monopolize the opportunity. Humph! You're lucky you didn't die. Niu Tunshan snorted. My friend, tell me, is this opportunity hidden in the futon? Meng Lianqing's voice was cold, and she stared at Lin Sun. They stared at Lin Sun covetously. Although there was a conflict between Meng Lianqing and Graceful Kong just now, they had to bear it for the time being in order to seize the opportunity. You want to know? Try it yourself. Lin Sun's black eyes were cold, and there was a flame of war burning in his heart. He was sure that the futon was extraordinary, and it was closely related to the Jade Archive and Golden Book. The inheritance hidden in it was extremely terrible and shocking. As soon as Lin Sun said this, Niu Tunshan and the others hesitated, but they did not act without permission. The current situation was very delicate. They had scruples and confronted each other. Whoever dared to be the first to attack would inevitably be besieged by the others. It was tantamount to forming a situation of mutual restraint. At the foot of the mountain, the overmatches of all races were paying attention. They also realized that the situation seemed to have changed again, and the atmosphere became tense and depressing. No one knew what would happen in the next moment. Oh, the opportunity is right in front of you, but you dare not to fight for it? Do you deserve to stand here with such courage? Lin Sun suddenly said. His black eyes were like lightning, and he glanced at the crowd. There was an uncontrollable fighting intent surging all over his body. Are you provoking me? Meng Lianqing's voice was cold. Little human, what qualifications do you have to talk nonsense? Niu Tunshan shouted. He hated Lin Sun very much. He had never been humiliated like a stupid bull or an animal. This was absolutely a great humiliation. Graceful Peacock and Xian Luozi sneered, very disdainful of Lin Sun's provocation. Did he want to provoke them into fighting each other so that he could fish in troubled waters? Don't even think about it. This was not only what Graceful Peacock and Xian Luozi thought, but also what Niu Tunshan and Meng Lianqing thought. They thought that Lin Sun was deliberately provoking them and had sinister intentions. When two enemies meet on a narrow path, the brave wins. But you are afraid of each other and have lost the courage to advance. What qualifications do you have to compete with me? Lin Sun's cold eyes were like lightning, and there was an unprecedented disdain between his eyebrows. His words were calm, but each word was like thunder, shocking people. Is this guy crazy? The overmatches at the foot of the mountain gasped. At this moment, Lin Sun seemed to have become a different person. Alone, he was provoking four peerless saints. He was so strong that it seemed too abnormal. What is this kid trying to do? Old Toad was also a little confused. This was not like Lin Sun's style. It was too direct and violent. Fighting against four overmatches alone was simply the stupidest thing to do. Absolutely not. Zhao Jingshuan's clear eyes were full of splendor. In the struggle for the Great Way, the brave come first and the fearless are fearless. At this moment, Lin Sun should have discovered some mystery and seen some clues hidden in the opportunity. Crazy, this guy is absolutely crazy. Ha ha ha, it seems that he knows he is no match for them, so he has given up and is staking everything on this one throw. What young devil god! He is just SOSO. In the face of such an opportunity, he still can't keep his composure. What achievements can he make on the road of Tao in the future? **T. If you think about it, this kind of behavior is no different from courting death. All kinds of mockery and ridicule sounded in the field, mostly from the overmatches of the Mighty Ox Demon tribe, the Golden Phoenix tribe, the Mysterious Turtle tribe, and the Cloud Python tribe. They thought that Lin Sun had lost his composure and was doomed to suffer. After all, there were four peerless saints eyeing him covetously. How could he be their opponent alone? For Niu Tunshan and the others, Lin Sun's behavior at this moment was indeed too abnormal. His provocation was too direct, which made them wonder if this guy had really gone crazy. A bunch of good-for-nothings. Seeing this, Lin Sun gently spat out these words and no longer looked at Niu Tunshan and the others. He strode forward and approached the futon in the center. His forcefulness, directness, and decisiveness all proved that he was determined to get this opportunity. When they saw this scene, they finally realized that Lin Sun might indeed be crazy, but he was definitely not joking. He really wanted to seize the opportunity alone while surrounded by enemies. You're courting death. Niu Tunshan let out a long roar and could no longer hold back. He waved his trident and attacked Lin Sun. Lin Sun moved his feet and avoided this shocking blow. The trident brushed past his body and crushed the nearby void. Light burst out and shook the place. Dong! Lin Sun was still empty-handed. His black eyes became deeper and deeper. He walked in the void forcefully and directly, rushing over to the trident and punching at Niu Tunshan's face. Niu Tunshan shook his shoulder fiercely, and black light burst out. His right arm, like an iron pillar, hit Lin Sun's body with a violent power. Boom! The two collided with each other, bursting out with shocking divine light. The void twisted and collapsed. It was terrifying and boundless. Even Meng Lianqing and the others changed their expressions because they found that in this confrontation, Niu Tunshan was shaken, and his body was shaking. The most terrifying thing about the Herculean Bull demonic clan was that they had unparalleled strength. Their blood qi was so strong that it surpassed all other clans. As the saint son of the Herculean Bull demonic clan, Niu Tunshan was a peerless genius. But now, in this head-on confrontation, he not only failed to defeat his opponent, but was shaken by this human teenager. How could this not be shocking? Humph! Niu Tunshan's face darkened, and his momentum grew stronger. In the blow just now, Lin Sun's strength surprised him. But that was all. He had not used his full strength. Boom! He waved his trident and attacked again. His figure moved like a mountain, and his momentum was oppressive. Blazing black light burst out and he pounced on Lin Sun. We can't waste any more time. Let's get rid of this boy first. Meng Lianqing said almost at the same time. Shrouded in golden divine light, she stepped into the battlefield and attacked Lin Sun together with Niu Tunshan. Xiu Kong and Xian Luozi looked at each other and hesitated. But in the end they attacked Lin Sun at the same time. In the current situation, it was undoubtedly the best to get rid of a competitor first. Moreover, they all knew that once they took the opportunity to seize the opportunity, the situation would change immediately. Neither Niu Tunshan nor Meng Lianqing would be indifferent. Kill! In an instant, the divine light roared in the Taoist field, and figures crisscrossed. 4 supreme holy suns rushed towards Lin Sun from different directions. The rapid change of the situation made all the overmatches at the foot of the mountain exclaim in shock. No one had expected this conflict to come so quickly and so fiercely. And Lin Sun was attacked by 4 supreme figures at this moment, which was also beyond the expectation of many overmatches.